Chapter 9:13. Master, I have thought of this as well, but the only explanation is the killing power of the blood pool. Regarding Long Fu's meaning, Longao also somewhat understood. It seemed like he was in big trouble. If his cultivation base was not stable, the killing power of the blood pool would take advantage of the situation and invade him. He was depressed. Now that things had come to this, he did not know what to do. Longao knew that if he wanted to completely stabilize his realm, it would not be possible to do so in a short period of time. But no matter what, he had successfully broken through to the Crimson Grade Great Emperor realm, which gave him an extra layer of protection. The illusionary divine stage and the Great Emperor realm were not on the same level. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. 10 days later, Longao finally got up and left the Sky Martial Forest. He did not go anywhere else, but went straight to the Martial Artists Alliance. The Martial Artists Alliance was one of the 10 great powers. As the headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance, the Emperor's City could be said to be one of the 10 strongest cities in the Sky Martial continent. There were countless experts in the Emperor's City. Not to mention ordinary people, even divine martial artists would not dare to be arrogant here. There was only one overlord in the Emperor's City, and that was the Martial Artists Alliance. The Emperor's City was surrounded by mountains on all sides, as if it was surrounded by mountains. But from afar, the Emperor's City was surrounded by white clouds, as if the Emperor's City was sitting on top of the clouds. The Emperor's City was extremely prosperous, and there was an endless stream of people. Shops lined both sides of the street, and the afterglow of the setting sun faintly sprinkled on the red bricks and green tiles, or on the brightly colored pavilions, adding a bit of domineering grandeur to the flourishing imperial city in front of him. Longao walked for a full 10 days. Moreover, he didn't stop at all. Only then did he barely reach the imperial city. Inside the Emperor's City, Longao observed the prosperity of the surroundings. Other than being shocked, he could not help but sigh. The Emperor's City was too majestic and domineering. Just the size of the city was like a kingdom. There were countless streets, and all kinds of buildings dazzled one's eyes. It was truly worthy of being one of the 10 great cities of the martial heaven continent. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, it would have been hard to imagine that there was such a majestic city in this world. Longao was very clear that as the headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance, one of the top 10 cities, there were as many strong warriors as there were clouds in the sky. Any random person who came out was probably a hidden expert, or a disciple of a big family. Because of this, Longao did not want to cause any trouble. No matter what, the main reason he entered the Imperial City this time was for Yuan. As for other matters, unless he had no other choice, he would avoid them as much as possible. In the Royal City, there were 4 great clans. The 4 great clans were the Shangguan clan, Ning clan, Weijia clan, and Nangong clan. Within the Imperial City, the Martial Artists Alliance was the absolute overlord. However, under normal circumstances, the Martial Artists Alliance would not interfere with the affairs of the Imperial City. Everything was managed by the 4 great families. In other words, the 4 families were the errand boys of the Martial Artists Alliance. Even so, the strength of the 4 great families was not to be underestimated. After Longao entered the Imperial City, he only strolled around for a while before he prepared to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. Since things had come to this point, he did not hesitate at all. For Yuan, even if he had to barge into the Martial Artists Alliance alone, so what? However, after thinking about it, Longao decided to wait first. At the very least, he wanted to figure out the situation first. First, he found a restaurant to have a meal. Then, Longao left the restaurant and continued to stroll around. He was prepared to inquire about the Martial Artists Alliance. The 1,000 Treasure Tower, the largest collection of treasures in the Imperial City, was one of the products of the Martial Artists Alliance. With the status and strength of the 1,000 Treasure Tower, not to mention ordinary people, even the 4 great families did not dare to provoke the 1,000 Treasure Tower. It was Longao's first time seeing a treasure tower of this level. Now that he saw it, he naturally wanted to go in and take a look. inside the Thousand Treasure Tower. The Thousand Treasure Tower was divided into 3 floors. The first floor was for ordinary treasures, the second floor was for powerful treasures, and as for the third floor, ordinary people could not go up at all. According to legends, the third floor of the Thousand Treasure Tower contained divine weapons. Martial artists did not have any concept of gold coins. According to the currency rules set by the Tianwu continent, if they wanted to do business, they could only use the same crystal stones. Although crystal stones were useless, the use of crystal stones between martial artists was like the use of gold coins between ordinary people. Longao did not have a single crystal stone on him. No matter what, he had just entered the Tianwu continent. On the first floor, there were many people. Longao was in the crowd, looking at the treasures in front of him. The entire first floor of the treasure tower was filled with rows of glass cabinets. These so-called treasures were in the glass cabinets. Longao took a glance and found that there were more than 1,000 treasures on the first floor. 120,000 crystal stones. Although he did not have a single crystal stone on him, 120,000 crystal stones was a concept Longao was very clear in his heart. The treasures on the first floor were already so expensive. It was hard to imagine the price of the treasures on the second floor, especially the divine weapons on the third floor. Longao really wanted to go to the third floor. After all, there were so many divine weapons. Who knew if there would be something suitable for him? Fair, let's go to the second floor. The third floor is a place for trash, Shang Wenjing said with a perverted smile. In his eyes, he did not put the people around him in his eyes. Shang Wenjing and Shang Wenfei were both disciples of the Shangguan clan. As one of the 4 great clans, the Shangguan clan had a very high status in the imperial city. Therefore, when the crowd heard Shang Wenjing's words, even though they were furious, they didn't dare to say anything. An oval face, red phoenix eyes, willowy eyebrows, and a peerless figure gave people a very breathtaking feeling. As a little beauty of the imperial city, Shang Wenfei's face was filled with disgust at this moment. Shang Wenjing was like a shadow following her around all day. Although she hated him in her heart, Shang Wenfei could do nothing about it. Shang Wenjing's status in the Shangguan clan was different. No matter if it was Shang Wenjing's father or grandfather, they all had a very high status in the Shangguan clan. Shang Wenjing, can you stop bothering me? I just want to stroll around the first floor. Shang Wenjing sneered in his heart. Fair, what do you like? Cousin will give it to you. Thank you, but no need. Shang Wenjing seemed to be a little angry after being rejected by Shang Wenfei. He looked around and cursed, then kicked fiercely to the left. In this world, many things were so coincidental. Sometimes you just had to believe it. Longao entered the imperial city to see Yuan. He did not want to cause any trouble. But what was the result? Shang Wenjing's kick didn't hit anyone but him. Chapter 9:14. Ordinary people wouldn't have dared to dodge. No matter what, Shang Wenjing's identity and strength were obvious. But Longao dodged. It didn't matter if he dodged, but it happened to provoke Shang Wenjing, who was in a rage. Damn you! How dare you dodge, you piece of trash! Longao, who was about to leave, heard the insults and slowly turned around. It was the same thing. The main purpose of entering the imperial city this time was to take Yuan away. Because of this, Longao had decided that as long as it wasn't a big deal, he would tolerate it. After all, he didn't want the Martial Artists Alliance to pay attention to him. But this was how it was. He didn't want to get into trouble, but there were always people who didn't know. Longao didn't want to get into trouble, but he wasn't afraid of it. As the saying goes, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people want to offend me, I'll offend them. You kicked me. If I didn't move away, I would really be trash. But I see that you're not trash. Longao's insults scared everyone around. They didn't expect that someone would dare to offend Shang Wenjing. Was he a disciple of the other 3 big families? Or a disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance? Boy, you've got guts. Shang Wenjing wasn't angry at all. Instead, he looked at the young man who dared to insult him with interest. Shang Guanjing was almost sure that he had never seen this person before. As long as he wasn't a disciple of the three big families or the Martial Artists Alliance, he could choose to ignore him. I don't know who you are, but I hope you don't have such a bad mouth. Anyone here is 10 times or 100 times stronger than you. This piece of trash, that piece of trash, I think you're the worst. Longao already knew that the young man who kicked him was definitely not an ordinary person. After all, the way people looked at him was very different. Was he from the four big families? But things had already come to this point. Longao didn't flinch at all. Good, very good, very good. Just as Shang Guanjing was about to strike, Shang Guanfei stopped him. Fei, this person doesn't know the difference between life and death. I'll let him know that in the royal city, provoking the Shangguan clan is the same as provoking the king of hell. The Shangguan family? Hearing the young man's self-introduction, Longao was also surprised. As expected, this young man was from one of the four great clans of the royal city, the Shangguan clan. No wonder he was so arrogant. Shang Guanfei was disgusted to the extreme. She glared at him and said unhappily, "Let's go. I'll accompany you to the second floor to take a look." He was overjoyed. Shang Guanjing didn't even continue to look for trouble. He said carefully, "Since you are so interested, I will accompany you to have a look. If you like something, I will give it to you." Before Shang Guanjing could finish her words, Shang Guanfei had already walked out and headed for the second floor. When Shang Guanjing passed by Longao, he said in a low and gloomy voice, "Brat, I don't care who you are. Since you dared to provoke me, I will let you know what it means to live a life worse than death. Just you wait." Looking at the two figures gradually disappearing, Longao didn't take it to heart. Although he didn't want to get into trouble, he believed that the Martial Artists Alliance wouldn't do anything for a disciple of the Shangguan clan. Seeing that Longao didn't show any fear, the surrounding people all had different expressions. Some wanted to watch a good show, some were gloating, and some were sympathetic. "Long Fu, can you sense if there are any treasures here that are suitable for me? Or are they especially powerful?" Just from the appearance, it was impossible to tell if these treasures were powerful or not. Therefore, Longao could only ask for help from Long Fu. Since he had already come in, if there were any suitable treasures, he would try his best to get them. With the connection between Long Fu and Longao, outsiders couldn't sense it at all. Long Fu was silent for a while and said, "Master, the treasures on the first floor are almost useless. There are 2 more on the second floor. As for the divine weapons on the third floor, there are indeed very powerful ones. And, just say it. Master, I just sensed the entire Thousands Treasure Tower and found that among the many divine weapons on the third floor, there is a very powerful one. If you can get it, it will be of great benefit to your stabilization of the realm." Hearing this, Longao was surprised and helpless. No matter what, this was the Thousands Treasure Tower, the territory of the Martial Artists Alliance. It was almost impossible to rob or steal here. Normally, it was very difficult to go up to the third floor. The Thousands Treasure Tower had a clear rule that if one wanted to enter the second or third floor, he must have a membership card. He didn't even have a piece of crystal. How could he have a membership card? "Master, there are Supreme Tao warriors here." Supreme Tao warriors? Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was shocked. Because he never thought that there would be a Supreme Tao warrior in a small Thousands Treasure Tower. Wasn't the Martial Artists Alliance making a fuss over nothing? But thinking about it, he was relieved. There were treasures everywhere in the Thousands Treasure Tower, and even divine weapons. Although the Imperial City was the base camp of the Martial Artists Alliance, there were accidents in everything. If something happened to the Thousands Treasure Tower, then the loss could be imagined. Not to mention, Supreme Tao warriors might be rare in other places, but in the Martial Artists Alliance, one of the 10 tripod, there were probably a lot of Supreme Tao warriors. Longao became more and more depressed because he knew very well that as long as he dared to do anything, he believed that the Supreme Tao warrior in the Thousands Treasure Tower would definitely make a move without hesitation. It seemed that he had to go up to the third floor to take a look, but how to go up? Longao didn't immediately go to the Thousand's Treasure Tower and thought of various ways. But after thinking about it, there was only one fastest and most direct way, and that was to spend 1,000,000 crystal stones to buy a membership card. In this way, he could go up to the third floor without any scruples. As for going up, that was a matter for later. 1,000,000 crystal stones, for the 4 major families or some powerful warriors, was almost not a difficult thing. But for Longao, it was an astronomical figure. Longao was very worried about how to find 1,000,000 crystal stones. Shangguan Jing? Thinking of the Shangguan clan disciple who just called him trash, Longao suddenly laughed. Thinking of this, Longao didn't continue to stay and got up to leave. Just leaving the Thousand's Treasure Tower, Longao had already sensed that someone was following him. It seemed that he didn't need to find Shangguan Jing. Shangguan Jing definitely wanted to take revenge on him. If it was an ordinary person who was followed by the Shangguan clan disciple, he would have been scared to death. But Longao wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was pleasantly surprised. In this way, his membership card was settled. Chapter 9:15. About 2 hours later. Outside the Thousand Treasure Tower. Feier, you go back first. I still have something to do. Shangguan Feier nodded. She hated her cousin to the extreme and wanted to leave immediately. Looking at her cousin who had disappeared, Shangguan Jing's face instantly darkened. Did you track him? Young master, we have found him. Very good. Let's go. As a disciple of the Shangguan clan, Shangguan Jing's talent and strength were not bad. At the age of 26, she had successfully reached the peak of the Saint Emperor realm. She was only one step away from officially becoming a great sovereign. Shangguan Jing was also a good-for-nothing disciple. She was also a vengeful person. In the imperial city, the Shangguan clan was one of the 4 masters. Who dared to provoke them normally? It was because of this that the other party dared to provoke her. They were simply courting death. Beside a garbage dump in the imperial city. Normally, there was almost no one around the garbage dump. Other than people who came to dump the garbage, there would be people who came to clean the garbage every once in a while. In other words, very few people would come to this place. Longao came to the garbage dump. He seemed to ignore the stench and stood there quietly, as if he was waiting for someone. Time passed by slowly. 2 hours later. You really have guts. You actually didn't leave the imperial city. Boy, I'm very curious. Are you waiting for me here? Shangguan Jing walked out unsteadily with her 4 subordinates. Among the 5, other than Shangguan Jing who was at the peak of the Saint Emperor realm, the other 4 were Saint Venerables. Their strength might not be considered much in the imperial city, but in other places, even in the Jiuzhou continent, they were equivalent to peak existences. Shangguan Jing had full confidence in her family's position and strength in the imperial city. She could almost be sure that in the imperial city, other than the Martial Artists Alliance and the other 3 families, no one dared to provoke the Shangguan clan. Moreover, Shangguan Jing could also be sure that the young man in front of her was neither a disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance nor a disciple of the other 3 families. If so, why was this person so arrogant? Shangguan Jing couldn't figure out why the other party would stay in the imperial city and choose such a remote place. Could it be that he was really waiting for her? Longao smiled and said, Shangguan Jing, I want you to do me a favor. I hope you can agree. Shangguan Jing didn't say anything, but the look in her eyes and the expression on her face were very obvious. Was the other party's brain flooded with water? Or was he scared out of his wits? Shangguan Jing, I need a 10,000 Treasures Tower membership card. Ha ha ha, kid, is there something wrong with your head? Longao's powerful aura was not something an ordinary person could pretend to be. The more Longao acted like this, the more Shangguan Jing didn't dare to act. After thinking for a while, she said, Brat, a straightforward person doesn't do underhanded things. If you are still a man, then tell me your identity. Why do you have to be so sneaky? Since you want to know, then I don't need to hide it. Long family? Long family? As expected, hearing that the other party was from a Long family, Shang Wenjing was silent. Of course, she knew what a Long family meant. In the Tianwu continent, the Long family was the most special because the Long family had the help of the most powerful dragon in the world. Under normal circumstances, the other 9 superpowers wouldn't provoke the Long family at all. In any case, provoking the Long family was equivalent to provoking the dragon. No one would have nothing to do. If Shang Wenjing was a disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance, she wouldn't be so afraid. But the problem now was that Shang Wenjing was not a member of the Martial Artists Alliance, but a member of the Shangguan family. The Martial Artists Alliance and the Shangguan family were not on the same level at all. This meant that the Shangguan family and the Long family were not on the same level. Shang Wenjing could almost say that as long as the Long family wanted to, they could destroy the Shangguan family in minutes. And Shang Wenjing could even conclude that once the Long family attacked the Shangguan family, the Martial Artists Alliance would not interfere. This was the reality. Chapter 9:16. Boy. My name is not Boy. You can call me Black Wolf. Shang Wenjing was not a fool. Of course, she knew that Black Wolf was not his real name. Black Wolf, the Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance have always minded their own business. If you do this, won't it be a bit provocative? It had to be said that Shang Wenjing was indeed very careful. Shang Wenjing did not mention her family. Instead, she directly mentioned the Martial Artists Alliance. The reason was very simple. Not to mention Shang Wenjing, everyone knew clearly that the Shangguan family and the Long family were not at the same level. Only the Martial Artists Alliance was qualified. She snorted coldly. Longao nodded and said, "You are right. The Long family and the Martial Artists Alliance have always minded their own business. But this time, I have nothing to do with the Martial Artists Alliance." What did he mean? Shang Wenjing, I don't have much patience. Shang Wenjing certainly knew what he meant. Her face became gloomier and gloomier. Did she really have to hand over the membership card of the treasure tower? If she did that, wouldn't it mean that she was afraid of him? Young master, although this person comes from the Long family, this is the Imperial City after all. That's right, this was an Imperial City, not Dragon City. What was there to be afraid of? What was there to be afraid of? Black Wolf, this is the Imperial City. Do you want to be here? Before Shang Wenjing finished speaking, Longao said impatiently in a cold voice, "Cut the crap. Let's fight. If you die, I will take it myself." Before Shang Wenjing could react, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. It was the space teleportation. The sudden disappearance startled Shang Wenjing. She had no idea what had happened. Until now, Shang Wenjing finally understood the real reason why he was so fearless. It turned out that he had some strength. So what? Shang Wenjing had full confidence in her strength. He was a peak Saint Emperor with 4 Saint Venerables behind him. If they lost in a 5 versus 1 battle, they could just die. Longao made use of spatial teleportation and instantly arrived behind the 5 people. Shang Wenjing. Before Shang Wenjing could react, Longao's fists had already smashed out fiercely. 5 consecutive punches, each faster and stronger than the previous one. Even if they were Saint Kings or Saint Emperors in the past, it would be very difficult for them to block Longao's fists, let alone the fact that Longao was an emperor now. Kacha, Kacha, Longao and the 5 of them exchanged punches. The 5 of them were directly sent flying. There was no suspense. The 5 of them had their left arms, chests, and even heads smashed open. 1 Saint Emperor and 4 Saint Exalts. In just a single move, 4 Saint Exalts had been killed by 4 punches. As for the last remaining Shang Wenjing, she had 3 of her ribs broken by a single punch. Shang Wenjing looked at the young man before her in shock. This was the so-called Black Wolf. Until now, Shang Wenjing had not dared to imagine that the other party's strength would be this strong. But the most frustrating thing was that she did not know what the other party's strength was at all. Peak Saint Emperor? Could he be a Saint Emperor? That shouldn't be it. But Shangguan Jing knew that be it Saint Emperor or Saint Emperor, she was no match for the other party. You're scared? Longao did not want to cause trouble. But the other party was so despicable that he could not help it. Since things had already happened, if he did not take this chance to get rid of this person, he would be in big trouble the moment this person left. Shangguan Jing was a disciple of the Shangguan family after all. He could not afford to let anything happen to her. Shangguan Jing did not say anything, but the expression on her face betrayed her. Black Wolf, this is the membership card. Not only can you go up a second time, you can go up to the 3rd level as well. I'll forget about what happened today. After receiving the membership card from the other party, Longao smiled and disappeared without a trace once again. This time, Shangguan Jing was completely scared. Just now, the other party's attack was like a thunderbolt. They did not even have the chance to resist. One move, just one punch, and 4 Saint Venerables were killed. Even she was almost killed. In your next life, I hope you won't be such a fool. Hearing the voice behind her, Shangguan Jing was shocked. Before she could react, she felt a pain on her back. She was sent flying. When she landed on the ground, she was already dead. In less than a few minutes, the 5 of them were dealt with. This was Longao's current strength. He did not even need to use the god-punishing sword or the power of the domain. Looking at the 5 corpses on the ground, Longao did not have the slightest sympathy. This was how the world worked. It was either you eat me or I eat you. Kindness to the enemy was the greatest kindness to oneself. Longao would never let himself make such a mistake. However, Longao was very careful. He burned all the 5 corpses on the ground and did not leave any traces. As a disciple of the Shangguan clan, Shangguan Jing had good talent and strength. If the Shangguan clan knew about this, then he would be in trouble. Especially if the Martial Artists Alliance wanted to intervene in this matter, he would be in even more trouble. Looking at the membership card in his hand, Longao was pleasantly surprised. He never thought that the membership card in Shangguan Jing's hand could not only go up to the 2nd floor of the 1,000 Treasure Tower, but also to the 3rd floor of the 1,000 Treasure Tower. It was simply an unexpected surprise. Holding the membership card in his hand, Longao did not immediately go to the 1,000 Treasure Tower. Instead, he found an inn and stayed temporarily. Shangguan Jing did not return to the Shangguan clan. It did not attract the slightest attention because Shangguan Jing was a famous good-for-nothing disciple. It was normal for her to not go home and go out. Everyone was used to it. The night was dark and the stars were dotted. However, the imperial city was extremely prosperous. It was still crowded and brightly lit. Longao ordered wine and dishes. He was originally drinking alone, but he did not expect to meet Shangguan Fei during the day. Black Dragon, I apologize to you on behalf of my cousin. He is like this. I hope you don't mind. She was a very kind girl. Longao did not vent his anger on Shangguan Fei because of the grudge between him and Shangguan Jing. It's okay, Miss Fei. To be honest, I participated in the Martial Artists Alliance competition and successfully won the flag. Later, I will join the Martial Artists Alliance. That's why I came to the Imperial City. I see. Shangguan Fei certainly knew about the Martial Artists Alliance competition organized by the Martial Artists Alliance. It was precisely because of this that Shangguan Fei's attitude towards Black Wolf changed a little. After all, the status of the Martial Artists Alliance was there. Chapter 9:17. Shangguan Fei was very familiar with the situation between her family and the Martial Artists Alliance. The 4 major families were the overlords of the Imperial City in name, but they were actually the watchdogs of the Martial Artists Alliance. Because of this, the 4 major families wanted to get closer to the Martial Artists Alliance. In this way, they would be suppressing the other 3 major families. I see. Miss Fei. Black Wolf. If you don't mind, you can call me Fei. Longao shrugged helplessly and called Fair. Black Wolf, you haven't joined the Martial Artists Alliance yet? Longao nodded and told the truth. To be honest, I just entered the Imperial City, so I don't know much about it. I went to the Thousand Treasure Tower today and found that the treasures inside are very suitable for me, so I want to take a look first. Shangguan Fair smiled and showed an "I understand" expression. The Thousand Treasure Tower was the biggest business under the Martial Artists Alliance. There were countless treasures inside, including the divine weapons. Not to mention Black Wolf, many people would go to the Thousand Treasure Tower first when they entered the Imperial City. Fair, I want to take a look at the second and third floor of the Thousand Treasure Tower. Do you have any ideas? Although he had the 10,000 Treasure Tower's membership card in his hand, Longao thought about it and still decided not to provoke trouble unless it was a last resort. Who knew if there was a record of Shangguan Jing's membership card? It was better to be careful. Thinking about it, Shangguan Fair still nodded in the end and agreed. This isn't a problem. But Black Wolf, what I want to tell you is that the treasures in the Myriad Treasure Tower's second level, especially the third level, are extremely expensive. At this point, Shangguan Fair did not continue, but the meaning behind her words was very clear. How could Longao not know that the items on the second and third floor of the 10,000 Treasure Tower were very expensive? But Long Fu had already said that the divine tools on the third floor were very powerful and suitable for him. Longao was naturally unwilling to give up such a rare opportunity. Seeing that Black Wolf didn't say anything, Shangguan Fair had already guessed it. However, after giving it some thought, it made sense. Although he would be able to join the Martial Artists Alliance later, he believed that he must have been a disciple of a branch of the Martial Artists Alliance. It was not hard to imagine how many crystals such a person would have on him. If it were an ordinary person, Shangguan Fair would not have cared. However, once he joined the Martial Artists Alliance, he might be useful in the future. After much consideration, Shangguan Fair said, Black Wolf, with my financial strength, even if I wanted to help you, I wouldn't be able to. The divine artifacts on the third floor are too expensive. I understand. There was no need for Shangguan Fair to say anything. How could Longao not know that the divine artifacts on the third floor of the Myriad Treasure Tower were incomparably expensive? After all, martial artists of the same rank, the martial artists who possessed the divine artifact would definitely have an advantage. Just like the dragon's seal, blood pool, God's slaying sword, and so on in his hands. If they could reach their peak state, they could almost cause chaos in the world. Black Wolf, although I don't have the strength to help you get the divine artifacts on the third floor, you can choose any treasure on the second floor of the Myriad Treasure Tower. Take it as a gift from me. Thank you. Longao did not refuse, although he knew very well that Shangguan Fair was doing this to rope him in. After all, Shangguan Fair did not value him, but the Martial Artists Alliance. Shangguan Fair got up and left. Longao continued to drink and eat. In his mind he was thinking about the Myriad Treasure Tower, the Martial Artists Alliance, and the Shangguan family. Although killing Shangguan Jing this time was foolproof, there was always a possibility. If the Shangguan family knew about this, Longao knew very well that he would be in big trouble. It was a quiet night. The next morning, Longao and Shangguan Fair arrived at the Myriad Treasure Tower early. This time, Longao did not take out his membership card. He followed behind Shangguan Fair and smoothly went up to the second floor. Cousin, you're here too. Black Wolf, let me introduce you. This is my cousin, Shangguan Mu, Shangguan Jing's elder brother. Cousin, this is Black Wolf. He participated in the Martial Artists Alliance tournament and successfully obtained the flag. He will join the Martial Artists Alliance later. Shangguan Mu's face darkened when he heard his cousin's words. He did not expect the other party to be a member of the Martial Artists Alliance and win the Martial Artists Alliance tournament. Shangguan Mu was Shangguan Jing's elder brother. His talent and strength were above Shangguan Jing's. Now that he had reached the peak of the Crimson class, he was only one step away from the Orange class Great Emperor realm. Black Wolf, nice to meet you. I'm Shangguan Mu. Nice to meet you. I'm Black Wolf. Longao and Shangguan Mu shook hands. Shangguan Fei smiled and said, Cousin, I brought Black Wolf here to take a look. Do you have any extra crystals? Let me use them first. Nodding, Shangguan Mu took out a crystal card and said, There are 1,000,000 crystals in here. 1,000,000 crystals? Longao sighed endlessly. This was the foundation of a big clan. Just the extra crystal stones were worth millions. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the foundation of the entire Shangguan clan was. Black Wolf, I have something to ask. I hope you can answer it for me. Shangguan Fei was curious. She did not know what her cousin wanted to ask. After all, they did not know each other. Please ask? He had a bad feeling. Had Shangguan Mu found out that he had killed Shangguan Jing? If that was the case, he would be in big trouble. Hey Lang, I heard that you had an argument with my disappointing younger brother yesterday, and that my younger brother sent someone to follow you. I really want to ask, since yesterday afternoon, my younger brother hasn't shown his face. Have you seen him? As expected. However, Longao was not a fool. Since Shangguan Mu asked this question, there was no doubt that Shangguan Mu did not know about it. In that case, there was no need for him to admit it. I don't know. I left the 1,000 Treasure Tower yesterday and found an inn. Fei can testify to this. Shangguan Fei nodded and said, Cousin Black Wolf is right. I did see him last night. You know what kind of person he is. It's very common to not see him for a few days. Fei, I have agreed to meet him today. Although third brother is sometimes a little foppish, he never dares to be late for my matters. Since things had already come to this point, Shangguan Mu's intention was clear. He wanted to say that his brother's sudden disappearance had something to do with Black Wolf. You mean to say that your younger brother's disappearance has something to do with me? Isn't it, cousin? Waving his hand, Shangguan Mu continued before Shangguan Fei could say anything. Black Wolf, I've already found out about your background. Although I don't know what grudges you have with my younger brother, you're too ruthless. P.S. Tomorrow first, Little 9 fight for 10 chapters. Chapter 9:18. I don't know what you mean. Longao was sure that Shangguan Mu knew about it. If that was the case, he would be in big trouble. Cousin, what do you mean? Shangguan Fei was curious. She didn't know what was going on with her cousin. He snorted. Just as Shangguan Mu was about to make a move, footsteps came from not far away. The three of them looked over and saw an old man coming from not far away. A supreme Dao martial artist? Senior Hong. Longao could clearly sense that the old man in front of him was a supreme Dao martial artist. If he was not mistaken, this person should be Hong Lang, the owner of the 1,000 Treasure Tower. Hong Lang looked very strong. As a supreme Dao martial artist, his aura alone was not something that ordinary people could have. At this moment, Hong Lang looked terrible. He glanced at the three of them and said, I don't care what grudges you have. This is the 1,000 Treasure Tower. You'd better not make trouble here. Without giving the three of them any chance to speak, Hong Lang continued. No matter who it is, as long as they dare to make trouble here, I won't show mercy. Senior Hong is right. I'll take my leave first. Shangguan Mu glanced at Black Wolf coldly and turned to leave. Since things had come to this point, Shangguan Fei certainly would not stay. She left the 1,000 Treasure Tower with Shangguan Mu. You're Black Wolf? Nodding, Longao replied. Yes, I'm Black Wolf. What can I do for you, Senior Hong? I already know about your matter. Since you've won, why don't you join the Martial Artists Alliance? Senior Hong, I just arrived at the Imperial City yesterday. I wanted to join the Martial Artists Alliance, but I accidentally came to the 1,000 Treasure Tower. So I want to take a look first. But, Longao looked at the third floor. His meaning was clear. At this point, he couldn't use Shangguan Jing's membership card to go to the third floor. If the Shangguan family knew about this, it would be really troublesome. Since you're a member of the Martial Artists Alliance, I'll allow you to go to the third floor. However, I can give you a 10% discount at most. Thank you, Senior. Longao was very clear that if a 10% discount was calculated, it was also a lot of Jingshi. After all, every divine artifact of the Myriad Treasure Tower required a very large amount of Jingshi. Black Wolf, although I don't know whether Shangguan Jing's incident was your doing, I want to remind you that even if you join the Martial Artists Alliance, you'd better not mess with the four families. Between you and the four families, the Martial Artists Alliance won't choose you. Do you understand? After saying this, Hong Lang turned around and left. In a short while, he had already disappeared without a trace. Longao naturally knew what Hong Lang had just said. There was no doubt about it. The four families were the most powerful watchdogs under the Martial Artists Alliance. Not to mention himself, he believed that even a supreme Dao warrior could not compete with the four families. As Hong Lang had just said, if he really went to war with the Shangguan family, the Martial Artists Alliance would definitely choose the Shangguan family and not him. Although Shangguan Mu had to leave because of Hong Lang's strength, he could almost be sure that Shangguan Mu already knew about it and would definitely not let it go. He sighed deeply in his heart. He did not want to get into trouble when he entered the Imperial City this time, but things were unpredictable. If trouble came to him, what could he do? There was only one way, and that was to deal with it as it came. Longao shook his head helplessly. Since it had already happened, he did not continue to dwell on it. Instead, he left the second floor and walked towards the third floor. Hong Lang had just said that he could go up to the third floor now and could get a 10% discount for any divine artifact he wanted. On the third floor of the Myriad Treasure Tower, there were only 3 shelves. Longao roughly took a look. The number of divine tools on the entire third floor did not exceed 30 pieces at most. But even so, it was hard to imagine that there were actually so many divine tools in a small Myriad Treasure Tower. Ordinary people could not even get 1 divine artifact, let alone 30. It was simply an astronomical figure. Excuse me, is there anything I can help you with? Waving his hand, Longao said. No need. If I want something, I will take the initiative to look for you. Longao began to wander around. He did not know if he did not look, but when he looked, he was shocked. There were more than 30 divine artifacts, and even the most inferior divine artifact was worth hundreds of millions of crystal stones. What kind of concept was that? Not to mention ordinary people, even people from the 4 great clans would not be able to take out hundreds of millions of crystal stones easily. Otherwise, how could the 4 great clans give up on such powerful divine artifacts so easily? Long Fu, how is your sensing? More than 30 divine artifacts dazzled Longao. He did not know which divine artifact was suitable for him, and which one was powerful. Master, I have roughly sensed that the divine artifacts here are all low-grade divine artifacts. Although there are a few powerful divine artifacts, they are almost useless to you. What does this mean? Longao was very curious. Just now, Long Fu had already said that the divine weapons on the 3rd floor of the 1,000 Treasure Tower were very powerful, and there were some that were suitable for him. But now, he said that it was not suitable for him, and the power of the divine weapons was not much. What was going on? Master, I sensed wrongly before. It was really a little depressing. Since Long Fu sensed wrongly, what was the use of him continuing to stay here? Longao was not willing to spend hundreds of millions of crystal stones to buy something that was useless to him, even if it was a divine artifact. Moreover, he did not even have a single crystal stone on him, let alone hundreds of millions of crystal stones. It was simply a joke. Longao was helpless to the extreme, but since it had already happened, it was useless to blame the heavens, and it was even more useless to blame Long Fu. Since the divine artifacts on the 3rd floor of the 1,000 Treasure Pagoda were not suitable for him, Longao had already decided to leave the 1,000 Treasure Pagoda this time and directly enter the Martial Artists Alliance. As for meeting Yuyin, he was afraid that it would not be easy. Longao was very clear that with Yiyin's talent and physique, even in the Martial Artists Alliance, she was a first-class existence. Yu Yin's identity was there. However, things were going very smoothly. No matter what, he had successfully entered the Martial Artists Alliance. When the time came, he would think of a way to see Yu Yin as soon as possible. Directly from the third floor to the first floor, just as Longao was about to leave the Thousand Treasure Pagoda, Long Fu's voice came again. Strange. Long Fu, what's wrong? Master, I don't know why, but I keep feeling that something is wrong. Under normal circumstances, I should not have sensed wrongly, but… At this point, Long Fu seemed to be a little depressed and continued. Master, don't leave first. Let me continue to sense. P.S. Today is the first of the month, 10 chapters will be released. This month, Xiaojiu also wants to compete for the monthly votes list. If he can enter the top 5 of the monthly votes list today, then under the premise of 10 chapters, he will continue to release more chapters. The higher the ranking, the more chapters will be released. Xiaojiu hopes that we will work together and vote more. Chapter 919. Longao didn't know what was going on, so he could only choose to stay. Inside the Thousand's Treasure Tower, Longao walked around, waiting for Long Fu to sense it. About half an hour later. Master, I sensed it. Long Fu, what happened? Longao became more and more curious. He didn't know what was going on with Long Fu, but it had already happened. Other than continuing to stay, it seemed that there was nothing else he could do. Master, I just sensed a very weak aura. Follow my instructions. He nodded. Longao followed Long Fu's senses and came to the corner of the first floor, in front of an extremely inconspicuous glass cabinet. The whole glass cabinet wasn't very big, and there was a dark red longbow inside. It was dim and looked ordinary. Longao didn't know why Long Fu asked him to come here. Long Fu, are you talking about this bow? That's right, Master. I'm still not sure if this bow is the legendary one, but I can say that if it's true, Master, you've made a big fortune this time. He still didn't understand, but Longao was very clear. It seemed that he was lucky again this time. Looking for the waitress, Longao pointed to the bow in the glass cabinet and asked, I want to buy this bow. How many crystal stones does it cost? In front of the glass cabinet, the price of the bow was written. It cost about 80,000 crystal stones. But Longao didn't have so many crystal stones on him now. He wanted to see if it could be cheaper. Hello, the price of this bow is 80,000 crystal stones. If you want, we can give a 10% discount. 72,000 crystal stones. 72,000 crystal stones. This number was almost nothing for a big family. But for the current Longao, it was an astronomical number. Where could he get 72,000 crystal stones? Black Wolf, I'll give you this bow. With that, Shangguan Fei handed the crystal card in her hand to the waitress and waved her hand. The meaning was very clear. Please wait a moment. Fei, thank you. Longao didn't expect that Shangguan Fei would still be willing to take out the crystals to help him. No matter what, the grudge between him and Shangguan Mu had been established. Black Wolf, I sincerely want to befriend you. Although I don't know what happened between you and my cousin, I have a presumptuous request that I hope you can agree to. He sighed deeply in his heart. However, Longao more or less had a good impression of the girl in front of him. He also treated Shangguan Fei as a friend. Otherwise, he wouldn't have accepted Shangguan Fei's crystal stone just now. Please speak. Black Wolf, if my family is in any trouble in the future, I hope you can help me. Hearing Shangguan Fei's words, Longao was shocked. Fei, I'm sure you're well aware of my situation. Aren't you overestimating me? Shangguan Fei smiled and said, I hope you can agree to my request. Looking deeply at Shangguan Fei in front of him, Longao nodded helplessly and agreed. Black Wolf, I know you've killed Shangguan Jing, but don't worry, I won't ask too much about her. However, my cousin is looking for you outside, and I believe the family will also deal with you. You'd better be careful. As expected. It seemed that the Shangguan family already knew about the matter between him and Shangguan Jing. That's right. Longao became more and more curious. Since Shang Wanfei already knew, why did she still want to be friends with him? What was going on? For some reason, Longao had a bad feeling, especially when it came to Shang Wanfei in front of him. After a while, the waitress returned with the crystal card. She handed the crystal card to Shang Wanfei and said, "This bao is now yours. I hope you two will come again next time. Black Wolf, if there's anything you need my help with, just send me a message. I'll definitely help you if I can." After saying that, Shang Wanfei turned and left. Things were getting more and more complicated, but Longao didn't continue to dwell on this problem. Although he didn't want to find trouble, if trouble came to him, he wouldn't compromise. As the saying goes, counter soldiers with arms, water with an earthware. Taking out the bao from the glass cabinet, Longao gently stroked it. It was dim, without any aura. No matter how he looked at it, it was an ordinary bao. He was very curious about what was so special about this bao. "Black Wolf, you bought this bao?" Hearing the voice, Longao turned and looked at Hong Lang, who had already come in front of him. He nodded and replied with a smile. "Yes, I felt that this bao was destined, so I bought it." Hong Lang seemed a little surprised. "Black Wolf, this bao is useless. I just put it here to make up the number. If you want, I can return the crystal to you. Why don't you look at another one?" Toward Hong Lang, this person, Longao also had a very favorable impression. "Thank you, senior, but I like this bao very much. In that case, I won't say anything more. By the way, there's something I want to tell you. Lu Tianzi and the Wanzhan schools seem to have something against you. In the Imperial City, you can ignore the Wanzhan school, but Lu Tianzi has already applied to join the Martial Artists Alliance. So, you'd better be careful." "Huh?" Longao was very surprised by Hong Lang's concern. It was as if Hong Lang had become a different person. His attitude had changed 180 degrees. What on earth had happened? "Thank you, senior, for your reminder. I'll be careful." As if he thought of something, Hong Lang continued. "Black Wolf, although I don't know what's between you and Qian Yi, I can tell you that Qian Yi is different from Lu Tianzi. Qian Yi has a very high status in the Martial Artists Alliance, and he has the Red Blood Guards. If he wants to kill you, it's very easy." "Qian Yi?" Longao was certainly familiar with Qian Yi. When he killed Qian Buer, he provoked Qian Yi and got Qian Yi's crystal ball. In the end, he gave it to Long Fu. Longao seemed to have forgotten about Qian Yi. Now that he mentioned Qian Yi again, he sighed inwardly. It was indeed very troublesome. Even without Hong Lang's explanation, he knew that Qian Yi had a very high status in the Martial Artists Alliance. After all, he was a warrior of the Divine Path, and he had the Red Blood Guards. But even so, shouldn't he enter the Martial Artists Alliance? For the sake of Yuan, Longao had already decided that no matter if it was a mountain of swords or a sea of fire in front of him, he had to give it a try. Moreover, things had already come to this point. He was only one step away. If he chose to leave at this time, not to mention others, even he himself would fiercely despise himself. Seeing that Black Wolf didn't speak, Hong Lang said with a smile, "Black Wolf, I have a way to let you enter the Martial Artists Alliance and have the ability to protect yourself. P.S. The second chapter is here. Everyone, please vote more monthly, and get some recommendation votes." Chapter 920. "Senior, please tell me. Why would Hong Lang help him?" After thinking about it, Longao couldn't figure out the reason. He didn't have any relationship with Hong Lang. As a supreme Dao martial artist, Hong Lang's eyes were higher than the sky. How could he help him for no reason? But the truth was right in front of him. What exactly happened? "Black Wolf, after you enter the Martial Artists Alliance, if anyone finds trouble with you, you can go directly to the Vice President, Tang Hao. I believe that with Tang Hao in charge, no one will find trouble with you." Tang Hao? The president of the Martial Artists Alliance had always been elusive. Under normal circumstances, the matters of the Martial Artists Alliance were handled by the vice presidents. Senior, I don't know Vice President Tang. Do you know Miss Murong? Miss Murong? After thinking for a while, Longao seemed to have thought of something. He asked in surprise, "Could it be Murong Yenner?" Hong Lang nodded and said with a smile, "Miss Murong might be a member of the Sword Sect, but Vice Alliance leader Tang is Miss Murong's grandfather. You should know what's going on now, right?" So that's how it is. Longao finally knew why Hong Lang's attitude took a 180-degree turn. It was all because of Murong Yenner. Longao was also surprised. He never thought that Murong Yenner's identity was so complicated. She actually had such a powerful grandfather. Without guessing, Longao could conclude that Murong Yenner's grandfather was the vice president of the Martial Artists Alliance. Whether it was status or strength, it was something that he couldn't imagine. "Senior, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." Seeing Hong Lang nod, Longao didn't continue to stay. He turned and left. After a while, he had already left the 10,000 Treasures Tower. Longao had just left when Murong Yenner's figure appeared. If Longao was still here, he might be shocked. After all, Murong Yenner suddenly appeared in the Imperial City. "Uncle Hong, thank you. Yenner, I was groomed by your grandfather. How could I not help you? However, Yenner, don't lie to me. Have you fallen in love with this silly boy?" Murong Yenner blushed slightly. Although she didn't say anything, her meaning was clear. "Yenner, Black Wolf has offended too many people. Other than Lu Tianxi and Qian Yi, it seems that Hades and He Sha don't like him. It seems that things are a bit troublesome. Don't be afraid. With grandfather's help, I don't believe that anyone would dare to touch him." Shrugging helplessly, Hong Lang didn't say much. After all, it was none of his business. Although he was very grateful to Tang Hao, Black Wolf had nothing to do with him. He couldn't offend a powerful enemy for someone he didn't know. Leaving the Myriad Treasure Tower, the corners of Longao's mouth curled into a trace of a cold smile, heading in the direction of the left. It was still near the garbage dump. "You've been following me all the way. Come out. Black Wolf, even if you're a member of the Martial Artists Alliance, you're too arrogant. How dare you kill my brother? I'll make you pay with your blood today." Shangguan Mu was the only one. As a peak Crimson martial artist, Shangguan Mu was extremely confident that he could kill a peak Saint Emperor in less than 3 moves. The aura emitted from Longao's body was indeed that of a peak Saint Emperor. "Your brother was courting death. What does it have to do with me? You're really arrogant. Shangguan Mu, I'll let you go this time since Fei and I know each other. Remember, don't mess with me. You!" It was funny. Shangguan Mu didn't take Black Wolf seriously at all. A mere Saint Emperor was just a joke in front of a great emperor. "Black Wolf, do you think that you can rest easy after joining the Martial Artists Alliance?" Before Longao could speak, Shangguan Mu continued. "Black Wolf, don't think that you can strut around just because you've joined the Martial Artists Alliance. I can tell you clearly that in the Imperial City, if my Shangguan clan wants to kill you, it's a piece of cake. Don't you think you're talking too much?" Longao was depressed. He couldn't be bothered to say more. Longao was very clear in his heart that this battle was unavoidable. Since that was the case, why should he waste time? Before Shangguan Mu could continue speaking, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. With the help of spatial teleportation, Longao's body appeared behind Shangguan Mu in the next second. Shangguan Mu was shocked. He didn't expect Lin Fan to suddenly disappear. He wouldn't have thought of such a situation even if he was beaten to death. Although he didn't know what happened, Shangguan Mu didn't dare to be careless. He turned around and threw out a palm strike. The terrifying force of his palm strike was like an avalanche, rolling towards Lin Fan. Longao didn't dodge at all and threw out a punch of his own. The fist and palm collided, and the force dispersed. Longao and Shangguan Mu retreated at the same time. At this moment, Shangguan Mu's face finally changed. It was extremely gloomy. "Crimson Emperor." Lin Fan said each word in a deep voice. Shangguan Mu didn't expect Lin Fan to be a Peak Saint Emperor, but a Crimson Emperor like him. No wonder Lin Fan could kill his brother. With just one move, Shangguan Mu could already feel how terrifying Lin Fan's strength was. It seemed like it was impossible for him to defeat Lin Fan alone. Black Wolf, I have to admit that you're very strong. But if you want to leave here today… Before Shangguan Mu could finish his words, countless people had appeared around them. They were the people from the Shangguan clan. There were more than 10 great emperors among them, and they were all great emperors who were above the Crimson Emperor realm. Uncle, this is the person who killed little Jing. Shangguan II, the elder of the Shangguan clan, was also a purple grade Great Emperor realm martial artist. He was only a step away from the titled Great Emperor realm. He could break through the titled Great Emperor realm at any time. Shangguan II had personally come after Shangguan Jing's death. It wasn't hard to imagine the consequences of Longao's actions. Among the 10 great emperors, there were even purple grade great emperors. Longao did not cry out in surprise when he saw the Shangguan clan's men surrounding him. He was very calm. It was as if he didn't care about the Shangguan clan at all. Seeing this, Shangguan II clapped his hands in admiration and said, "Black Wolf, I'd like to ask. What's the grudge between you and my nephew that you have to kill him?" Longao was very wary of this purple grade great emperor who had suddenly appeared. After all, he had just broken through to the Crimson Emperor realm. He hadn't even stabilized his realm yet, let alone fighting a purple grade Great Emperor realm martial artist. However, since things had already happened, he didn't back down. P.S. The 3rd chapter has arrived. I just took a look. Rank 20 on the monthly votes list. Dida, work hard to get into the top 5. Xiaojiu, work hard too. Try to get more chapters. Chapter 921. At this point, Longao didn't continue to hide it. The Shangguan family must have known about it, otherwise, they wouldn't have made such a big fuss. Longao knew clearly that he was about to enter the Martial Artists Alliance, and the Shangguan family was so afraid of the Martial Artists Alliance that they wouldn't casually make a move. "Who are you?" "Shangguan II, Shangguan Jing is my nephew. He wanted to kill me, I had no choice." Simple, Longao didn't find any other reason. Nodding, Shangguan II looked at his subordinates and suddenly waved his hand, saying, "Kill." Shangguan II had full confidence that even if the Martial Artists Alliance knew about this, the Martial Artists Alliance wouldn't choose to deal with the Shangguan family for a mere Crimson Great Emperor. In the Imperial City, the 4 great families were the most capable assistants of the Martial Artists Alliance. Unless the Shangguan family betrayed them, the Martial Artists Alliance wouldn't give up on the Shangguan family. Because of this, Shangguan II directly gave the order to kill. The ordinary disciples didn't make a move, the opponent was a Crimson Great Emperor after all. In this way, the 10 great emperors in the surroundings separated from the 2 orange great emperors and attacked together. Not daring to be careless, Longao used spatial teleportation and suddenly disappeared. Disappeared into thin air? Shangguan II was taken aback when he saw the other party disappear right under his nose. He didn't know how the other party did it. Not to mention a great emperor, even a supreme Dao warrior wouldn't be able to do this. The 2 orange great emperors also didn't expect the opponent to suddenly disappear. Before the 2 orange great emperors could react, a terrifying dragon roar and sword aura came from behind them. Like a violent storm, it instantly engulfed the 2 orange great emperors. Everyone in the surroundings sucked in a breath of cold air. The opponent was just a mere Crimson Great Emperor. Under normal circumstances, 1 against 2, facing 2 orange Great Emperors at the same time, should be a matter of minutes. But the result? Kill. Following Shangguan II's order, a yellow Great Emperor rushed out and joined the battle in the blink of an eye. The dragon roar and sword chi continued to resound throughout the world. The surrounding space seemed to be trembling. Longao was already having a hard time fighting 1 against 2. Now that another yellow-grade Great Emperor had joined the fray, the pressure on Longao instantly multiplied. Longao knew that in a 1 versus 3 situation, he had no chance of winning. However, Longao didn't leave. Things had already come to this point. If he didn't do something practical, the Shangguan family would think that he was a pushover. So what if it was 1 against 3? The 3 great emperors released their respective realm powers. The realms stacked on top of each other. The 3 great emperors believed that they could crush their opponents with their realms stacked together. But what was the result? Not only the 3 martial emperors, but everyone else was also dumbfounded as they watched the battle unfold before them. They had thought that the other party would definitely die, but they had never expected that the other party would be able to disregard the overlapping domains of the 3 martial emperors. The slaughter domain was considered the pinnacle of all realms. How could an ordinary great emperor's realm suppress the slaughter domain? Moreover, the massacre territory that Longao had condensed contained a massacre aura that mainly came from the blood pool. Even so, Longao still didn't dare to be careless. With his current strength, he might be able to fight against an orange-grade great emperor. However, it was almost impossible to fight against the yellow-grade great emperor. The deity's slaying sword finally appeared. Longao used the Emperor Dragon's 9 fatal strikes. At the same time, the dragon roar resounded. Just as the 3 martial emperors were about to besiege the other party, a shocking scene suddenly appeared. The black wolf disappeared and never appeared again. Everyone looked at each other. They didn't know what had happened. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, it was really hard to imagine that someone could leave in such a situation. Uncle! Waving his hand, Shangguan Tu's face was extremely gloomy at this moment. It was as ugly as it could get. This time, he personally took action and brought along 10 martial emperors. Even so, they still couldn't kill this person. If this matter were to spread out, where would his face be? Where would the Shangguan clan's face be? How would he explain it to the clan head? This person isn't simple. It seems like we can only ask the old ancestor to take action. Uncle, is there a need to ask the old ancestor? It's not that simple. This person was scared by us. If nothing unexpected happens, I believe he will definitely join the Martial Artists Alliance. At that time, if we forcefully kill him, the Martial Artists Alliance will definitely not be happy. Martial Artists Alliance? Shangguan Mu, of course, knew what his uncle meant. Although the Shangguan clan was one of the overlords of the Imperial City, they were only a joke in front of the Martial Artists Alliance. Not to mention the Shangguan clan, even if the 4 major clans joined forces, they wouldn't dare to provoke the Martial Artists Alliance. This was the unshakable position of the Martial Artists Alliance. Uncle, even if that's the case, isn't it making a mountain out of a molehill to ask the old ancestor to take action for a black wolf? Shangguan Mu knew what it meant to ask the old ancestor to take action. His clan had instructed him not to trouble the old ancestor if there was nothing important. The old ancestor is the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. If he wants to kill a black wolf, it's just a matter of minutes. Even if others know about it, I believe no one will dare to interfere. Only the old ancestor can take action. The Shangguan clan had a super expert. He was the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. This was the real reason why the Shangguan clan had been standing tall among the 4 major clans for so many years. The deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance was second only to the chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. It wasn't hard to imagine how powerful the old ancestor of the Shangguan clan was. Uncle, should we discuss this with the old ancestor? The old ancestor that Shangguan Mu mentioned was the clan leader of the Shangguan clan. I'll talk to my elder brother. What you need to do now is to contact the Martial Artists Alliance as soon as possible, and see if there's a way to deal with this person. If it's possible, we don't need to trouble the old ancestor. Got it, uncle. This time, the Shangguan clan had mobilized so many people, but they did not even know how the other party disappeared. It could be considered as a failure among failures, causing everyone to feel depressed. From the beginning to the end, they did not know how the other party did it. After all, other than the 10 great emperors, there was also a purple-grade great emperors. If this matter were to be spread out, it wouldn't do any good to the Shangguan clan's reputation. That was exactly the case. Shangguan too immediately gave the order to keep this matter a secret. No one was allowed to leak this matter out. This way, other than the two parties, almost no one else knew about this matter. Chapter 922. Not far from the garbage dump. Looking at the people of the Shangguan clan who had all left, Longao stood quietly in the same place. No one knew what he was thinking. Longao was not happy that he had teleported away this time. The reason was simple. This incident had alarmed the entire Shangguan clan. If there were no accidents, even if he entered the Martial Artists Alliance, he would still be in trouble. He shrugged helplessly. Since things had already come to this point, Longao could not do anything about it. Longao did not continue to dwell on this issue. He immediately entered the Dragon Seal space and took out the bow that he had just obtained. Long Fu, the bow you mentioned earlier is very likely to be the legendary Annihilation Divine Bow? Nodding, Long Fu stared at the bow in Longao's hand. He seemed to be in disbelief. Master, under normal circumstances, this bow should not appear here. At this point, Long Fu thought for a moment before continuing. Legend has it that there is a godly bow of extinction in the world. At its peak, the godly bow of extinction could even destroy the world. Its power was almost on par with the blood pool. He was startled. Regarding the meaning of what Long Fu said, Longao already heard it clearly. He had never imagined that such a powerful divine artifact would fall into his hands. His luck was simply too good. However, Longao was also curious. After all, the silent god bow in his hand looked dull. It did not look like a super artifact that could destroy the world. Could Long Fu have sensed wrongly? As if he could guess what his master was thinking, Long Fu pointed at the silent god bow and said, "Master, if I'm not wrong, the silent god bow in your hand not only had its spirit extinguished, but also suffered serious injuries. If you want to recover it, I'm afraid." Although Long Fu did not finish his words, the meaning in his words was very clear. So that was it. He sighed in his heart. No matter how powerful the divine obliteration bow was, it was only an ordinary item now. Long Fu had already said that it was almost impossible to restore the divine obliteration bow. Long Fu, if that's the case, what's the point of obtaining the godly obliteration bow? Master, I know what you mean. However, the annihilation godly bow hasn't completely disappeared. As long as we work hard, it's not impossible for us to restore it to its peak state. Longao shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Of course, he knew that it was better than nothing. Perhaps one day, he would be able to recover to his peak with this godly annihilation bow. When that time came, wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted? Master, although the current annihilation divine bow is already heavily damaged, as long as you pour all of your power into it, I believe that a single shot from the bow will be enough to instantly kill an orange-level Great Emperor. Instantly killing an orange-level Great Emperor martial artist? It would be a lie to say that he wasn't tempted. Longao knew very well what Long Fu's words meant. Even with his current strength and all of his trump cards, it was still unknown if he could kill an orange-level Great Emperor martial artist. With this divine obliteration bow, didn't it mean that he could instantly kill an orange-level Great Emperor martial artist if he wanted to? He was extremely surprised. Not to mention whether the divine obliteration bow could be restored to its peak state. Just this point alone was enough to make countless martial artists fight for it. Long Fu, are there any repercussions? Longao wasn't a fool. Even if the divine obliteration bow hadn't been restored to its peak state, with his current strength, he wouldn't be able to easily use the divine obliteration bow. That's why Longao had already guessed that if he used the divine obliteration bow and could instantly kill an orange-level Great Emperor martial artist, he wouldn't believe that there wouldn't be any repercussions. The divine obliteration bow was like the space-time wheel. Although the space-time wheel was extremely powerful and could even break open a space-time tunnel, every time it was used, he had to be prepared to sacrifice himself. Just as expected. Nodding, Long Fu said helplessly, Master, since you've already guessed it, I won't hide it from you. The divine obliteration bow is too powerful. Even in your current state, if you want to use the divine obliteration bow, I'm afraid all of your strength will be instantly drained. As for the repercussions, as long as it's not a life and death situation, it shouldn't be a problem. Instantly, Longao understood what was going on. If he were to use the annihilation divine bow, all the energy in his body would be drained in an instant. At that time, he would be a fish on the chopping block. Therefore, he would not use the annihilation divine bow unless he had no other choice. No matter what, the divine obliteration bow was still his trump card. Carefully putting away the divine obliteration bow, Longao left the dragon seal space. Longao was more or less solemn as he had completely offended the Shangguan clan this time. No matter what, the Shangguan clan was one of the 4 great clans of the imperial city. Their strength and foundation were there for all to see. Longao didn't immediately enter the martial artists' alliance. Instead, he prepared to inquire about Yuyin. He was very clear that with Yuyin's talent and strength, once she was focused on cultivating by the martial artists' alliance, he believed that there would be news about Yuyin in the imperial city. But what was the result? Longao inquired for an entire day, but he still didn't get any news about Yuyin. Could it be that he guessed wrong? The next day, Longao was eating in a restaurant when he accidentally saw an acquaintance. He wasn't unfamiliar with this person at all. Lei Luo, a warrior of the divine path. Back then, he was the representative of the martial artists' alliance to the world of the 9 continents. He was the shameless person who almost killed him. Longao didn't have a good impression of this person. However, Longao knew that as a warrior of the divine path, Lei Luo's status in the martial artists' alliance was no small matter. Therefore, he didn't act recklessly. Now Longao spent a lot of time to change his appearance. In other words, even if he stood in front of Lei Luo now, he believed that Lei Luo wouldn't be able to recognize him. Longao had already thought of a countermeasure. This time, when he entered the martial artists' alliance, he definitely couldn't use his original appearance. Otherwise, forget about taking Yuyin away, he might not even be able to see Yuyin. Suddenly, Longao's lips curled into a cold smile. Although he couldn't fight with Lei Luo face to face, Longao didn't plan to let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to play with Lei Luo before entering the martial artists' alliance. If he hadn't been so lucky, he believed that he would have been played to death by Lei Luo. Longao was a person who would take revenge. No matter who the other party was, if an ordinary person saw that Lei Luo was a warrior of the divine path, even if he had a grudge against him, he believed that he wouldn't act rashly. After all, the strength of a warrior of the divine path was no small matter. In front of a warrior of the divine path, a great emperor warrior was only a joke. However, Longao was different. He knew that there were tigers in the mountain, but he still went to the mountain. P.S. 34th in the monthly votes list. Sigh. Chapter 923. Inside the Imperial City. Longao got up and followed Lei Luo silently. With the help of teleportation, Longao's god-slaying sword fiercely slashed out in broad daylight. At the same time, the sword chi was like a storm, filling the surroundings with sword chi. Lei Luo, who didn't have the slightest bit of vigilance, was surprised by the sneak attack of the sword chi. As a supreme Dao warrior, and in the Imperial City, the headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance, Lei Luo didn't think that someone would dare to sneak attack him in such a situation. That person was simply courting death. A supreme Dao warrior was indeed a supreme Dao warrior. With a turn, Lei Luo's body was covered with a chi shield, blocking the sword chi outside. This was the strength of a supreme Dao warrior. Who is it? Looking around coldly, Lei Luo didn't dare to imagine that someone would sneak attack him in the Imperial City. It was simply like pulling a tooth out of a tiger's mouth. Many people were watching the show. Although Lei Luo's voice wasn't loud, everyone could hear it. No one admitted it. inside the dragon seal's space. Just now, with the help of teleportation, Longao directly entered the dragon seal's space, regardless of whether he succeeded in killing Lei Luo or not. Longao had full confidence that once he entered the dragon seal's space, Lei Luo wouldn't be able to find him even if he turned the entire imperial city upside down. The corner of his mouth curved into a cold smile. "Master, with your strength, you're still not his opponent." Waving his hand, Longao smiled and said, "Of course I know that. I'm just accompanying him. Lei Luo, that bitch, tricked me before. This time, I'm just taking back some interest." "So that's how it is." Long Fu didn't continue speaking, while Longao just smiled. This matter wasn't over yet. He would let Lei Luo know how painful it was to be depressed. Cowardly as a mouse, daring to do it but not daring to come out. Lei Luo couldn't be sure who did it, but since the other party could do it without anyone noticing, there was no doubt that the other party's strength couldn't be underestimated. Lei Luo could almost be sure that the person who sneaked attacked him was definitely not an expert from the Martial Artists Alliance. In that case, who could it be? He was very depressed. He had been ambushed, but he couldn't even see the shadow of the other party. If this matter were to spread, he would lose a lot of face. He didn't dare to stay any longer. The other party's strength was enough to kill him, although he still didn't know why the other party didn't fight him openly. Before he could even take 3 steps, several bursts of sword chi shot toward him, one after another. Lei Luo was extremely depressed. Who was this person? Why did he want to sneak an attack on him? "Who is it? Come out and fight me if you have the ability." No one answered. Lei Luo was able to block the sword chi with ease. However, no matter who it was, they would be enraged if they kept getting sneak attacked like this. "Mother Asterisk Cur coward! Lei Luo, today, I will show you what retribution is." Suddenly, an aged voice came from all around. It was almost certain that the owner of the voice was definitely an old man. All the people who were watching a good show all hid themselves. 2 Supreme Tao warriors were fighting, who knew whether or not the fish in the moat would be implicated. Lei Luo was also shocked because he could only hear the voice, but couldn't see the person. What did this mean? Lei Luo was very confident in his strength. Even if the God of Heaven was here, he wouldn't be able to hide himself, and only hear the voice. Who was the other party? Was the other party a Supreme Tao warrior? Impossible. Lei Luo was very clear that the Supreme Tao warriors were all super powerful warriors. There was no need for them to go through so much trouble to deal with him. Moreover, this was the Imperial City, the headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance. Other forces wouldn't dare to cause trouble here. After thinking about it, Lei Luo still couldn't think of a reason. "Senior, I don't know how I have offended you. If I have, I hope you will forgive me." The more mysterious something was, the more threatening it was. Lei Luo was really scared. After all, at this time, he still couldn't pinpoint the other party's location. It was hard to imagine what would happen if the other party wanted to kill him. Because of this, Lei Luo chose to compromise. A cold snort came from all around. "Lei Luo, we can write off the grudges between us, but you have to do one thing. I am also happy, so let's forget about this." Grudges? Lei Luo was extremely depressed. He really couldn't think of a powerful warrior he had offended. The other party was obviously powerful, but he didn't dare to show up. It could only mean one thing, that this person was a member of the Martial Artists Alliance, which meant they were on the same side. It was a very simple reason. If the Martial Artists Alliance knew that one of their own was going against one of their own, even if the other party was a Supreme Tao warrior, it would be hard to explain. Moreover, the other party obviously didn't want to kill him. Otherwise, he would have fallen down by now. "Senior, please tell me." Things had already come to this point. Did Lei Luo have a choice? Kneel on the ground and keep kneeling in the Martial Artists Alliance. Then, we will write off the grudges between us. You are going too far. Lei Luo's face suddenly became ugly. As the saying went, one shouldn't go too far. As a supreme Dao warrior, his status and reputation were all there. If he were to kneel on the ground and return to the Martial Artists Alliance, where would his reputation go? Lei Luo was extremely angry. He was like an erupting volcano. However, thinking of the other party's mysterious and powerful strength, he was instantly doused with cold water. Lei Luo, you should know your limits. Don't think that you can ignore everything just because you are a supreme Dao warrior. I can tell you that in this world, there are many people who can kill you. Who was the other party? Lei Luo was getting more and more confused. He still couldn't figure out which powerful warrior he had offended. However, it was impossible for him to kneel on the ground and return to the Martial Artists Alliance. He would rather be killed by the other party than do such a lowly thing. Lei Luo was not a fool. He knew clearly that the other party was doing this to threaten him. However, regardless of the other party's strength, until now, he couldn't even determine the other party's location. If he hadn't experienced it himself, he wouldn't have believed that such a thing could happen. No matter what, he was a genuine Supreme Dao warrior. Who are you? What grudges do I have with you? A straightforward person doesn't do underhanded things. Even if I die, I want to die knowing the reason. Show yourself. In the dragon seal space. Longao kept smiling. However, he couldn't leave the dragon seal space. Although his cultivation had successfully broken through to the Crimson Great Emperor realm, he still knew his own strength. If it was a one-on-one battle, he wouldn't be Lei Luo's opponent. This was without a doubt. P.S. The monthly votes are a little low. I hope everyone will vote for Little Nine. Little Nine will also work hard. This is the 6th chapter. Chapter 924. Longao's original intention was not to kill Lei Luo. He just wanted to play with him. Humph, I hate people who bargain. As soon as he said that, Lei Luo's face changed. Before he could figure out what was going on, an unparalleled power of the 5 elements enveloped him and suppressed him. Power of the 5 elements? In an instant, Lei Luo had already guessed the other party's identity. To be able to use such a strong power of the 5 elements, there was only one place that could do it. That was the 5 Elements sect. 5 Elements sect, one of the 10 pillars. 1 clan, 2 alliances, 3 sects and 4 sections. They were the Long family, Dan Alliance, Martial Artists Alliance, Wanshou sect, Heaven and Earth sect, 5 Elements sect, Wanzhan School, Sword sect, Purple Thunder sect and Black Heaven sect. Among the 10 pillars, only the 5 Elements sect had a deep understanding of the power of the 5 elements. It was also because of this that Lei Luo became more and more depressed. He did not know which expert of the 5 Elements sect he had offended. Not to mention, the 5 Elements sect and the Martial Artists Alliance had always minded their own business. No matter how arrogant the 5 Elements sect was, they did not dare to behave atrociously in the Emperor City. They simply did not put the Martial Artists Alliance in their eyes. Senior of the 5 Elements sect, aren't you a bit too much? Lei Luo could almost say that the other party was definitely a Supreme Dao expert. Because just this aura alone, he did not have any resistance. Although the aura could not kill him, he could guess the other party's true strength. Within the Dragon Seal space, the aura that Longao released did not come from the Dragon Seal space, but from the 5 Elements Primal Chaos Stone Tablet. After such a long time, although Longao and the 5 Elements Primal Chaos Stone Tablet had not completely merged, he was already able to use a small amount of the Primal Chaos Stone Tablet's aura. What made Longao feel the most helpless was that this aura was unable to kill the enemy. It could only scare people. But in this situation, it was this aura that could not kill that scared Lei Luo. Even if Lei Luo was beaten to death, he would never have thought that things would turn out like this. Being completely suppressed, Lei Luo did not even think of fighting back. That was because from his point of view, the other party's aura was already so terrifying and his strength was not to be underestimated. Even if he were to fight back, he would only be seeking his own humiliation. If Lei Luo didn't make a move, he would never discover the secret. If Lei Luo were to make a move, he would definitely discover that the aura released by the other party was just a paper tiger. Which friend from the Five Elements sect came to my Emperor city? Why don't you come out and meet us? A loud laugh was heard. Then, an old man strolled over. He seemed to be moving slowly, but he was actually as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he was already beside Lei Luo. Seeing the old man, Longao immediately retracted the aura of the Primal Chaos Stone tablet. Supreme Divine Tao? Longao had already sensed the aura of a Supreme Divine Path cultivator before, so he knew very well that the expert who had just appeared was a Supreme Divine Path cultivator who was above the Divine Path. Big Brother Tang, save me! Waving his hand, Tang Hao's expression was somewhat solemn because even he was unable to sense the other party's location. What did this mean? It was very simple, the other party's strength was above his. Tang Hao, the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. His strength was unfathomable, and he was also Murong Yenner's grandfather. Why don't you come out and meet me? What enmity do you have with Lei Luo? We can talk it out, how about it? This was still an emperor city, so Tang Hao didn't believe that the other party would be so arrogant. Who are you? Hearing the other party's question, both Tang Hao and Lei Luo were somewhat surprised. Because with Tang Hao's status and strength, not to mention the Martial Artists Alliance, even in the entire Tianwu continent, he was a famous existence. The other party actually didn't know of Tang Hao's existence? This old man is Tang Hao, the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. May I know who you are? Within the Dragon Seal space. Hearing the other party introduce himself, Longao was extremely surprised. He never would have thought that the other party was Murong Yenner's grandfather, Tang Hao. So it's Deputy Chief Tang. Since Deputy Chief Tang has come out, then today's matter will end here. As for the enmity between me and Lei Luo, I will look for him in the future. Goodbye. Sir, please wait. No one replied. Tang Hao sighed deeply. It was hard for him to imagine that such an expert would actually want to deal with Lei Luo. Just which expert from the Five Elements sect was he? He didn't seem to know him. Big Brother Tang, what should we do? Tang Hao's expression was somewhat ugly. He asked in a deep voice. Lei Luo, let me ask you now. Which expert from the Five Elements sect did you offend? Shaking his head, Lei Luo also wanted to ask who he had offended. Such an expert, even Tang Hao couldn't determine his strength. One could imagine how strong he was. Even if he had 10,000 guts, he wouldn't dare to offend such an expert. Big Brother Tang, you should know my character best. I wouldn't offend such an expert. Tang Hao nodded. He was very clear about Lei Luo's character. Not to mention Lei Luo, even he would not casually provoke such an expert. The other party was too terrifying. From the beginning to the end, he could not even determine the other party's position. It was hard to imagine the other party's strength. No wonder he dared to enter the Imperial City alone. I'll report this to the Martial Artists Alliance. When the time comes, I'll ask the Five Elements sect what happened. I just sense that although the other party wants to harm you, he doesn't have any killing intent. Otherwise, you would have already been killed. How could Lei Luo not know about this? It was precisely because of this that he became more and more afraid. Being stared at by such an expert at all times, not to mention him, even a Supreme Divine Tao expert would be afraid. Who exactly did he offend? Why did he have to find him? Big Brother Tang, what should I do? Looking at Lei Luo's worried face, Tang Hao didn't know what to do. But since it had already happened, it had to be solved quickly. Because no one knew when this mysterious expert would attack Lei Luo. Once he attacked, there was no doubt that Lei Luo would die. Tang Hao felt somewhat apologetic towards Lei Luo. It turned out that Lei Luo's father and Tang Hao were good friends. Lei Luo's father had fallen in order to save Tang Hao. This was also the real reason why Tang Hao had been taking care of Lei Luo for so many years. From now on, don't leave the Martial Artists Alliance until I solve this matter. Do you understand? I understand. I'll leave first. Thank you, Big Brother Tang. Since things had already come to this point, how could he refuse? Lei Luo didn't want to die. He sighed deeply, turned around and left helplessly. Soon, he disappeared without a trace. After Lei Luo left, Tang Hao prepared to leave as well. You're Tang Hao, Senior Tang? Chapter 925. Who are you? Tang Hao was surprised by the sudden appearance of the young man in front of him. In the Imperial City, including the Martial Artists Alliance, no one dared to call him that, let alone a young man. The young man who suddenly appeared was none other than Longao, who had just left the Dragon Seal space. Alliance Master Tang, I'm Black Wolf, Muron Yenner's friend. Black Wolf? Tang Hao was enlightened when he heard him introduce himself. He said, Oh, so you're Black Wolf. Yenner has already told me about you. Have you already entered the Martial Artists Alliance? Powerful. Longao couldn't sense his true strength at all. The only thing he knew was that the Vice Alliance Master in front of him was very powerful. Vice Alliance Master Tang. Tang Hao waved his hand and said with a smile, Since you're friends with Yenner, you can call me Elder Tang if you don't mind. Longao was delighted. He knew what Tang Hao meant. He was about to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. At that time, he would be surrounded by enemies and could encounter obstacles at any time. If he could get Tang Hao's help, everything would be much smoother. If that's the case, then I'll accept your offer, Elder Tang. Follow me. Longao nodded and followed Tang Hao into the nearest restaurant. The two of them casually ordered a few dishes and a pot of hot wine. They sat face to face and drank. I want to ask, how did you and Yenner meet? Longao didn't hide anything about this. He told Tang Hao everything about himself and Muron Yenner, including how they went through life and death together. After listening, Tang Hao sighed and said with a smile, No wonder Yenner values you so much. Black Wolf, you won the Alliance tournament this time. If there are no accidents, it shouldn't be a problem for you to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. Regarding this point, Longao also knew. Elder Tang, to be honest, although I can enter the Martial Artists Alliance this time, I'm surrounded by enemies. I hope Elder Tang can help me when the time comes. Who are your enemies? As the Vice Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tang Hao wasn't afraid of other Vice Alliance Masters, unless the Alliance Master himself came. Tang Hao wasn't the only Vice Alliance Master in the Martial Artists Alliance. Elder Tang, I believe you know about the grudge between me and Lu Tianxi. And Qian Yi. Following that, Longao also talked about the grudges between himself and Qian Yi. Longao's previous appearance was his current appearance. Therefore, he couldn't show his real face when he entered the Martial Artists Alliance. In this way, once he entered the Martial Artists Alliance, Qian Yi would definitely cause trouble for him. Black Wolf, although I promised Yenner that I would help you when you entered the Martial Artists Alliance, you have to earn your own living. Do you understand what I mean? How could he not understand? Longao felt helpless. He thought that with Tang Hao's help, even if he entered the Martial Artists Alliance, he would be able to solve a lot of problems. However, Tang Hao's meaning was very clear. He didn't care about him. I know what to do. Black Wolf, I'll help you when it's appropriate. But most of the time, you have to face it by yourself. Without giving Longao any chance to speak, Tang Hao stood up and said that he had something else to do. Then he turned around and left. After a while, he disappeared without a trace. Longao stayed in the restaurant alone. It seemed that it was impossible to count on Tang Hao. However, no matter what, he had to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. At this point, Longao couldn't choose to give up. Moreover, Yuyin was in a very troublesome situation. God knew what would happen. The more time he wasted, the more trouble Yuyin would be in. Finally, he's here. Longao sneered. He suddenly stood up and walked outside. Outside the restaurant, Longao sped up. He was like a flash of lightning. After a while, he was out of sight. Uncle, I didn't expect that Black Wolf hadn't entered the Martial Artists Alliance yet. Shangguan Tu nodded. He was also a little surprised. According to their guesses, this person had offended his family. Anyone would choose to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. After all, if he entered the Martial Artists Alliance, even the Shangguan family wouldn't dare to act rashly. If they did, it would be seen as a provocation. At that time, the Martial Artists Alliance would be angry, and the Shangguan family wouldn't be able to resist. In that case, no matter what happens this time, we can't fail. Uncle, Black Wolf can suddenly disappear. What should we do? Shangguan Mu was very depressed. Until now, he still didn't know how Black Wolf could do it. How could he disappear into thin air, even if his uncle came in person? Shangguan Tu thought for a while and said, "If I'm not mistaken, Black Wolf can suddenly disappear because he has a space artifact." Space artifact? Shangguan Mu was startled by his uncle's words. Of course, he knew what a space artifact meant. Greed suddenly appeared on his face. After all, a space artifact was very tempting. Even a warrior of the divine path couldn't resist it, let alone him. It seems that the space artifact this person has is very powerful. If our family can get this artifact, we'll be like a tiger that has grown wings. Uncle, if this person keeps using the space artifact to disappear, we won't be able to catch him, let alone get the space artifact. Shangguan Tu seemed to be prepared for this. Shangguan Tu sneered and said coldly, "Big brother is in seclusion, but I've already informed the elders. Look at the thing in my hand." Looking at the thing in his hand, Shangguan Mu was a little shocked. Then he laughed. With this thing, it was almost impossible for the other party to leave. Longao, who was running quickly, of course, sensed that someone had locked onto his aura. Without a doubt, he only had one enemy in the Imperial City, and that was the Shangguan family. With the aura of a purple-grade Great Emperor, Longao was almost certain that the expert sent by the Shangguan family this time was Shangguan Tuesday. Although he had the Dragon Seal space and could choose to disappear at any time, the other party was still a purple-grade Great Emperor. Moreover, it was time for him to enter the Martial Artists Alliance. There was no need for him to find trouble. Therefore, Longao didn't plan to go head-on with the Shangguan family. Longao didn't want to find trouble, but the Shangguan family wouldn't give up so easily. Shangguan Tu led dozens of great emperors, including Shangguan Mu, and chased after him. It wasn't clear whether it was intentional or not, but the two parties arrived at the garbage dump in a short while. P.S. 8 o'clock. Please work hard. Little 9 thanks. Chapter 926. There was no way out. Longao turned around and looked coldly at the dozens of people in front of him. Black Wolf, I'd like to see how you're going to disappear in front of me today. Is that so? Longao didn't put the dozens of people in his eyes. So what if they're purple-grade Great Emperors? With the Dragon Seal space, he could disappear at any time. Not to mention purple-grade Great Emperors, even Divine Path martial artists couldn't stop him. This was the power of the Dragon Seal space. Longao didn't want to waste any more time with them and was about to enter the Dragon Seal space. However, the result shocked Longao. Couldn't enter the Dragon Seal space? What the hell happened? Longao was a little surprised because he had only been unable to enter the Dragon Seal space a few times. He didn't think that a few great emperors would be able to stop him from entering the Dragon Seal space. Black Wolf, are you surprised? Don't think that you're invincible just because you have a spatial divine tool. As he spoke, Shangguan Tu took out a glass ball the size of an eyeball. There seemed to be a drop of blood in it. Longao wasn't a fool. He knew that the reason why he couldn't enter the Dragon Seal space was because of the glass ball in Shangguan Tu's hand. If you don't mind, I'd like to know what the glass ball in your hand is. Who do you think you are to want to know? Shangguan Tu waved his hand and sneered. Black Wolf, cut the crap. As long as you're willing to hand over the spatial divine tool, I'll let you go. How about it? Spatial divine tool? In an instant, Longao knew what Shangguan-tu meant. It seemed that everyone thought that he had a spatial divine tool after seeing his sudden disappearance. However, that was the truth. Strictly speaking, the dragon seal space was indeed a spatial divine tool. Moreover, he had another spatial divine tool in his hand, the so-called space-time wheel. Idiot! Longao's body suddenly disappeared. Shangguan-tu and the others were shocked. They didn't know what happened. How could he disappear under the Qilin blood? Did the power of the Qilin blood disappear? Impossible. The drop of Qilin blood in Shangguan-tu's hand was the blood of a spatial Qilin. It was specialized in restraining spatial divine artifacts. It was precisely because of this that Shangguan-tu had brought the Qilin blood to deal with Black Wolf. But now, he suddenly found that the Qilin blood was completely useless, causing Shangguan-tu and the others to think that the Qilin blood was useless. Just when everyone was extremely puzzled and did not know what to do, Longao's body suddenly appeared. He sneered. Shangguan-tu, why don't you give me this drop of Qilin blood? Perhaps he was frightened, but before Shangguan-tu could figure out what was going on, Longao had already rushed over, ready to snatch the Kirin blood from his hands. Even if Longao had the spatial teleportation and had broken through to the Crimson Grade Great Emperor realm, it was almost impossible for him to snatch the Qilin blood from a Purple Grade Great Emperor. However, Longao attacked from both sides. You want to snatch the Qilin blood? Shangguan-tu simply wanted to laugh crazily when he saw the other party snatching the Qilin blood from his hands. His face was filled with disdain and contempt. Although the other party could use a spatial divine artifact to disappear, he was still a Crimson Grade Great Emperor martial artist. From the beginning to the end, Shangguan-tu didn't take the other party seriously. It was as if the other party was purposely moving around. But in the next second, Shangguan-tu looked at his hands dumbly. From the beginning to the end, he didn't know how the other party had done it. Black Wolf, hand over the Qilin blood. Lost the Qilin blood? A mere Crimson Grade Great Emperor actually snatched the Qilin blood from the hands of a Purple Grade Great Emperor martial artist. Everyone around didn't know how the Black Wolf had done it, but it was a great humiliation for them. Shrugging helplessly, Longao said with an innocent face, Are you out of your mind? When did I take your Qilin blood? Shangguan-tu was speechless because he was almost certain that the Black Wolf hadn't snatched the Qilin blood from his hands. If it wasn't the Black Wolf, then who could it be? Everyone looked at each other. They didn't know where the Qilin blood in their boss' hands had gone. Shangguan-tu, I don't have time to play with you here. Goodbye. Without giving anyone a chance, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. Uncle, now that the Qilin blood is lost, how are we going to explain it to Uncle when we go back? Things were getting troublesome. The Qilin blood was the most precious treasure of the Shangguan clan. If it wasn't to deal with the Black Wolf, the clan wouldn't have used the Qilin blood. Shangguan-tu's face was extremely gloomy and ugly. After all, the Qilin blood was lost. Even if he was the younger brother of the clan head, he wouldn't be able to deal with the consequences. Shangguan-tu knew very well what losing the Qilin blood meant. Black Wolf, don't think that you've won. I'll definitely make you regret it. Inside the dragon seal space, Longao looked at the glass ball in his hand and seemed to be very surprised. He didn't expect that this small glass ball would actually contain a drop of Qilin blood. Moreover, it could even imprison him into the dragon seal space. Long Fu, what happened just now? Long Fu also had a helpless expression and said, Master, the drop of Qilin blood in your hand isn't ordinary. Not only is it the blood of a spatial Qilin, but it also fused with the origin energy. That's why it could imprison you into the dragon seal space. Fortunately, there was the little guy's help. Otherwise, Master, you'd be in big trouble this time. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was shocked. So this drop of blood had such an origin. He knew very well what it meant when the Qilin blood fused with the origin energy. As for the little guy, Longao looked at the little mouse. This time, he was able to successfully seize the drop of Qilin blood from Shangguan Tu's hands. Without the little guy, he wouldn't have been able to do this. Adding on the little guy's speed, even in the end, Shangguan Tu hadn't been able to figure out what had happened. He had no choice but to admit that the little guy's speed was too fast. Even his eyes couldn't keep up with it. Longao also realized that after the little guy had absorbed the blood pool's energy, its overall strength and speed had undergone a heaven-toppling increase. If it had been based on the little guy's previous speed, it wouldn't have been easy to take the Qilin blood from Shangguan Tuesday. Long Fu, how does the Qilin blood absorb the origin energy? Longao was very clear that the martial heaven continent's origin energy was controlled by the heavenly Das. Since that was the case, how could the Qilin blood absorb the origin energy? Was there some trick to it? Author's note: today, I should be able to maintain my rank around 30. Tomorrow, I'll have at least 5 chapters. If I have 100 votes tomorrow, Little 9 will continue to add 5 chapters, which is 10 chapters. I hope everyone will vote. Little 9 will also work hard. Chapter 927. Master, I believe you've already guessed it. Could it be true? Master, the origin energy of the Sky Martial Continent is only controlled by Tian Dao, so this drop of Qilin blood was refined by Tian Dao. But I don't know why it's here. As expected. Longao had already guessed that this drop of refined Qilin blood was most likely refined by the Heavenly Dao. As for why this drop of blood appeared in the Shangguan clan, he had no idea. The Qilin clan was one of the strongest clans in the world. Their strength was comparable to the Dragon clan and the Phoenix clan. There were many clans in the Qilin clan. Among them, the Spatial Qilin was the strongest. Master, this drop of Qilin blood can stabilize your Emperor realm. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was overjoyed. Previously, he had forcefully broken through to the Emperor realm, but it was not easy to completely stabilize his realm. Longao had tried so many times, but he had not succeeded in stabilizing his realm. Long Fu, what should I do? Master. In the following time, with Long Fu's help and the Qilin blood, Longao began to stabilize his Emperor realm. 3 days later, Longao left the Dragon Seal space. This time, he did not hesitate and went straight to the Martial Artists Alliance. He was a little excited at the thought of meeting Yuan. The Martial Artists Alliance was one of the 10 forces. Its foundation and strength were superb. The Martial Artists Alliance was located in the deepest part of the Imperial City. Under normal circumstances, as long as one was not a disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance, one could not step into the territory of the Martial Artists Alliance. Once the Martial Artists Alliance found out, it was not impossible for them to be killed. As soon as Longao stepped into the territory of the Martial Artists Alliance, he was stopped by 2 disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance. The 2 of them looked arrogantly at the young man in front of them and asked coldly, "Who are you?" "Branch Vice Hall Master, winner of this year's Alliance competition. Today, I'm here to report to the Martial Artists Alliance." The Deputy Hall Leader might be in existence below tens of thousands of people in the Martial Artists Alliance, but in the Martial Artists Alliance, the status of the Deputy Hall Leader was different. Disdain and contempt were evident on their faces. "So you're from the Blackwater City branch? The higher-ups told me that if I want to join the Martial Artists Alliance, I have to pay 100,000 crystal stones." Grass. Longao cursed in his heart. He was not a fool. He knew that the 2 people in front of him were just talking nonsense. Why would the Martial Artists Alliance want 100,000 crystals? It was truly frightening. In the end, it was because their status had not reached such a level. Even ordinary disciples looked down on them. Longao did not have 100,000 crystal stones on him. Even if he had 100,000 crystal stones, he would not give them to the 2. "I'll ask my superiors later. If I really have to hand over 100,000 crystal stones, I'll hand it over. Now please step aside." Seeing that the young man was about to barge in, the two of them were shocked. The higher-ups did not give them such an order, so the two of them did not dare to leak this information. Otherwise, they would only have one consequence, which was to be punished. "Young man, you're very arrogant. Step aside." Longao's voice had gradually cooled down. He did not want to cause trouble, but he was never afraid of trouble. The two of them snorted. Although they knew that they were no match for the young man, they were confident that the young man would not dare to make a move here. After all, similar things had happened before. Without exception, anyone who wanted to join the Martial Artists Alliance, no matter if they were ordinary disciples or deputy hall leaders, would hand over their crystal stones obediently. This was the real reason why the two of them were so confident. Before the two of them could make a move, Longao's figure had already spun and directly punched the two of them out. Longao did not kill them. After all, this was the Martial Artists Alliance. If he acted rashly, there would only be one outcome, which was that the Martial Artists Alliance would deal with him, and he would not have the chance to see Yuan. It was still the same. The main purpose of joining the Martial Artists Alliance this time was to see Yuan. Therefore, for Yuan, Longao could endure anything. The two of them looked at each other, and saw a trace of fear in each other's eyes. The young man just now was very powerful. The two of them were almost certain that if the young man wanted to, he could kill them in a matter of minutes. "What should we do? What can we do? We can only endure it. This young man's strength is right there. Do you want to die? Humph, even if we are no match for him, we can kill him with a borrowed knife." Hearing that, the two of them immediately got up and walked far away. The Martial Artists Alliance was located in the deepest part of the Imperial City. It was extremely magnificent. The headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance could only be described with one word: magnificent. Palaces were built side by side. They were of different heights, but the lowest building was at least 3 stories high. At first glance, it was densely packed. The Imperial City was magnificent enough. However, in front of the headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance, the Imperial City was just child's play. Longao stared at the center of all the buildings, which was the tallest one. At first glance, there were at least 100 stories. It was as if the entire building was connected to the sky and covered by clouds. In other words, the headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance looked like it was sitting on top of the clouds from afar. According to the information he received, Longao knew that with his current status, he was not qualified to enter the tallest building. He could only report to the sub-palace now. Although he used to be the deputy hall chief of Blackwater City, he could only be a core disciple after entering the Martial Artists Alliance. He had a lot less experience. Under normal circumstances, ordinary people could only be outer disciples after entering the Martial Artists Alliance. Unless their strength reached a certain level or they made contributions, they could become inner disciples. After that, they could become core disciples. The core disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance were usually focused on training by the Martial Artists Alliance. However, everyone knew that in the Martial Artists Alliance, especially among the core disciples, the competition was extremely cruel. This was because the Martial Artists Alliance did not care about your life or death. Core disciples could challenge each other. As long as they agreed, their lives and deaths were up to fate. According to the Martial Artists Alliance, only the disciples who survived the competition were worthy of the Alliance's focus. Longao came to a side hall and found the steward. He went straight to the point and revealed his identity. A middle-aged man sat behind the table. He raised his head lazily and glanced at Black Wolf. He said impatiently, "The Martial Artists Alliance tournament has ended so long ago. Why are you reporting so late? It's my first time in the Imperial City. I couldn't find it before, so I was delayed. P.S. All 10 chapters have been delivered. I hope everyone votes tomorrow. If there are 100 monthly votes, Xiaojio will continue with 10 chapters." Chapter 928. The middle-aged man seemed to understand. After all, the Tianwu continent was too big. It would take a long time to travel from Blackwater City to the Imperial City. Black Wolf, although your actions are pardonable, the Alliance has its own rules. Do you understand? Yes. Since that's the case, you can become an inner disciple of the Alliance. I hope you can cultivate well and become a core disciple as soon as possible. Then, the Alliance will train you. Inner disciple? Longao was not surprised by the Alliance's arrangement. Because no matter if it was an inner disciple or a core disciple, they were all the same to him. Thank you? Longao did not say anything more. He turned around and left. No matter what, he only had one purpose in joining the Martial Artists Alliance, and that was to see Yuan. As soon as Longao left, Lu Tianxi suddenly appeared. Brother Lu, it's done. Lu Tianxi nodded with a sinister smile and said, Good. I'll do what I promise you. The middle-aged man seemed to be curious. He said, Brother Lu, if you want him dead, we have countless ways. Why do you want him to become an inner disciple now? Ask what you need to ask. Lu Tianxi seemed to be unhappy. He looked at the disappearing figure and said to himself, Black Wolf, I'd like to see how you can leave the Alliance alive. The Martial Artists Alliance was divided into 8 branches. They were the Eastern Alliance, the Western Alliance, the Southern Alliance, the Northern Alliance, the Northeastern Alliance, the Northwestern Alliance, the Southeastern Alliance, and the Southwestern Alliance. However, Longao was the winner of the Alliance competition. Although he was only an inner disciple, he would still be heavily trained by the Alliance. That was without a doubt. No matter what, Longao was the Deputy Hall Chief of Blackwater City. His starting point was higher than countless people in the huge martial arts field. You are Black Wolf? Looking at the 5 or 6 people who suddenly appeared in front of him, Longao was a little unhappy, but he still nodded. He had successfully joined the Martial Artists Alliance. Unless it was a last resort, he would not easily cause trouble. Longao knew what he had to do for the sake of the big picture and to see Yuan. He didn't even need to ask to know why the 5 or 6 people had stopped him, because this kind of thing would happen no matter where he went. People's hearts were sinister. If you didn't have strength or a strong backer, you would be bullied and oppressed everywhere. This was reality. This was a dog-eat-dog world. In the cruel reality, no one would sympathize with you, and no one would be willing to help you. You had to rely on yourself. If you felt that you were pitiful, then you would become even more tragic. I heard that you're awesome. Lu Yun and Lu Fei are our big brothers. Since you killed them, shouldn't we take revenge? They were all the strongest inner court disciples. They had basically all reached the peak of Saint Emperor. With their talent and strength, they were completely capable of becoming a core disciple. However, for some reason, the 5 of them were still inner court disciples. Without a doubt. Now that the 5 of them had come looking for trouble, it was not because they had nothing better to do, but because they had been instructed by someone. It was easy to guess without guessing. With just the 2 of you. Ha ha, what an arrogant kid! Before the 5 people could continue to despise and look down on him, or even give them the slightest chance, Longao's body suddenly disappeared. Kacha, 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 Longao's fists moved at the same time. 1 punch for 1 person. In just a few seconds, the 5 of them had almost all fallen to the ground. It was still the same sentence. Longao didn't kill them, so they could come looking for trouble. However, in order to see Yuan, he had to endure it. Because of this, Longao only knocked the 5 of them unconscious. Saint Emperor martial artist had almost no resistance in front of a Crimson Emperor. This was the difference between a Saint Emperor martial artist and a Crimson Emperor martial artist. The difference was like heaven and earth. After hitting the 5 of them, Longao turned and left quickly. He already knew what had happened. Longao wasn't an idiot. Of course, he could guess. He had just entered the Martial Artists Alliance. It was impossible for someone to come looking for trouble. 5 Saint Emperors at the same time. It was too much of a coincidence. Lu Tianxi? Qianyi? After thinking for a while, Longao finally locked on to one person. That person was Lu Tianxi, not Qianyi. The reason was simple. If this matter was arranged by Qianyi, then Qianyi didn't have to do this. After all, with Qianyi's status in the Martial Artists Alliance, he didn't need to use a few Saint Emperors to deal with him. Other than Qianyi, there was only Lu Tianxi. Longao was almost certain that Lu Tianxi had already entered the Martial Artists Alliance and become a core disciple. Longao already had a rough understanding of the Martial Artists Alliance. The first requirement to become a core disciple was to have great talent. The second requirement was to have the strength of a great emperor martial artist. Both were indispensable. According to these two requirements, Longao was almost certain that Lu Tianxi could become a core disciple after entering the Martial Artists Alliance. The situation in the Martial Artists Alliance might be different from other superforces. The so-called core disciples could also become protectors, elders, or even deputy leaders. It was just that these people were all core disciples. Longao was very careful. He was very alert, ready to deal with Lu Tianxi's troubles at any time. Somewhere in the Martial Artists Alliance. Big brother, Black Wolf has already entered the alliance. I only hope that you can help me. No matter what, you have to kill him. Mei Kai lowered his head and pondered. His face was very pale. This was because Black Wolf still hadn't found his little mouse. This had always been Mei Kai's worry. Of course, Mei Kai already knew that Black Wolf had come to the Martial Artists Alliance. However, he didn't do anything immediately. No matter what, Black Wolf was the winner of the alliance and was valued by the higher-ups. If the alliance knew that he was going to kill Black Wolf, there would be a lot of trouble. Lu Tianxi, you should know the rules of the alliance. I've already received news that although Black Wolf is listed as an inner disciple, he will soon become a core disciple. If the alliance knows that it was us who did this, think about how the alliance will deal with us. Of course, Lu Tianxi knew what Mei Kai was talking about. However, when he thought about how Black Wolf had entered the alliance openly, he couldn't accept that he could only watch but couldn't do anything. Because of this, Lu Tianxi knew that he had to invite Mei Kai. After all, Mei Kai's identity and strength were not something that he could compare with. Big brother, are we just going to let him go like this? Waving his hand, Mei Kai thought for a while and said, I've just received news that Black Wolf and the Shangguan family have a big grudge against each other. P.S. Brothers, Xiao Jiu asks everyone to give your monthly votes to Longao. 100 votes is not much. Xiao Jiu thanks. Chapter 929. Shangguan Family? Although Lu Tianxi had just joined the Martial Artists Alliance, he was still familiar with the situation in the Imperial City. The real overlord of the Imperial City was the Martial Artists Alliance. But under normal circumstances, the Martial Artists Alliance wouldn't meddle in the affairs of the Imperial City. In other words, there were only 4 families in charge of the Imperial City. They were the Shangguan family, the Ning family, the Soja family, and the Nangong family. Big brother, you want to use the Shangguan family to deal with Black Wolf? Lu Tianxi didn't doubt the strength of the Shangguan family. Not to mention a small Black Wolf, even a supreme Dao warrior wouldn't dare to offend the Shangguan family. If I'm not wrong, the Shangguan family is afraid of the Martial Artists Alliance, so they don't dare to act recklessly. Lu Tianxi was a little surprised. But then he understood. After all, the Martial Artists Alliance was here. Unless the Shangguan family was stupid, they wouldn't offend the alliance easily. It was still the same sentence. The overlord of the Imperial City was the Martial Artists Alliance, not the Shangguan family. In other words, the Shangguan family was just a joke in front of the Martial Artists Alliance. Big brother, what should we do? Lu Tianxi was helpless. But he had decided that no matter what happened, Black Wolf had to die. Even if the 5 of them helped him, he would act alone. Just as Longao had guessed. With Lu Tianxi's status and strength, he could easily join the Martial Artists Alliance and become a core disciple. He didn't know what would happen in the future. Just now, Black Wolf's status was far from his. You just joined the Alliance, so there are some things you don't know. The Shangguan family is not as simple as it looks. Lu Tianxi really didn't know about the Martial Artists Alliance and the four families. Was there something fishy? Big brother, is it the Shangguan family? You guessed right. The Shangguan family is very powerful, and they have a deputy chief. F***ck Lu Tianxi cursed in his heart. Of course, he knew what a deputy chief meant. No wonder Mei Kai was so serious. It turned out that the Shangguan family had such a powerful deputy chief. Lu Tianxi was no fool. He understood what Mei Kai meant. He wanted to use the Shangguan clan and the Deputy Alliance Master's power to deal with Black Wolf. Although it was making a mountain out of a molehill, it seemed that he had no choice but to do so given the current situation. Lu Tianxi, keep an eye on Black Wolf. Leave the rest to me. Got it. Longao didn't know about Black Wolf and Mei Kai's scheme, but he had already guessed that since Lu Tianxi had joined the Martial Artists Alliance, there was no doubt that Lu Tianxi would deal with him. Martial Artists Alliance. Within the Emperor City. Yu Yin's expression was very ugly, because she really did not expect that her master would go back on his words. Her cultivation had clearly broken through to the Divine Path realm, but she still could not leave the Martial Artists Alliance. Yu Yin knew very well that she could not leave the Martial Artists Alliance. Otherwise, if her master wanted to deal with Longao's strength, he would have no chance to fight back. Senior sister, do you miss him? Tong Linger sighed deeply in her heart. From the beginning to the end, she did not expect that she would fall in love with her senior sister's lover. She did not dare to tell her senior sister about this, because in Tong Linger's opinion, it was not very kind of her to do so. Well, Linger, what do you think Master means? Why won't he let me go see him? Looking at her senior sister beside her, Tong Linger shrugged helplessly and said with a smile, It's actually very simple. With your talent and physique, it's almost certain that you will enter the Supreme Divine Path in the future. What does me going to see him have to do with me entering the Supreme Divine Path? Of course it does. Senior sister, you are now the favorite of Master and the Alliance. The faster your talent and cultivation speed, the more the Alliance and Master will value you. If I'm not wrong, Master will probably never let you see him. Hearing Linger's words, Yu Yin suddenly stopped. Is what you said true? I guessed. Guessed? If even her junior sister guessed, Yu Yin was not a fool. Of course, she knew that the meaning was not much different. It seemed that the Alliance and Master did not want her to see Longao again. Everything was a lie. If she could not see him, then why did she do this? Senior sister, if you can break through to the Supreme Divine Path, then even the Alliance and senior sister will not be able to restrict you. But now, looking at her junior sister who was hesitating to speak, Yu Yin seemed to be a little impatient and asked, Why are you so impatient? Senior sister, I'm just guessing. Master and the Alliance seem to want to find you a new man. At this point, Tong Linger did not continue speaking, but the meaning in her words was very clear. In fact, anyone with a discerning eye could tell at a glance. Even in the Martial Artists Alliance, a Supreme Divine Path martial artist was definitely a high and mighty existence. Even so, Yu Yin did not have the right to speak. She was even restricted. The reason was simple. If there was anything to blame, it was because Yu Yin was too talented and cultivated too quickly. At this moment, Yu Yin was like the flesh of the Alliance and the Hades. How could they choose to let her go? If she did not think about it, she would not know. After thinking about it carefully, Yu Yin realized that all of this was actually a lie. Master did not want her to see Longao from beginning to end. It was just a lie to deceive her. Senior sister, I want to tell you something, but you have to promise me that you must be calm and not be impulsive. She seemed to be a little curious. Usually, Linger had a mischievous appearance, But now, Linger seemed to have changed into another person. Nodding, Yuying promised, "Don't worry, senior sister will not act rashly." After thinking about it, Tong Linger still looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. "Linger, if you have something to say, just say it. Senior sister, I don't want to see you unhappy. Let me tell you a secret now. Longao has already entered the Imperial City. Not only that, he has also entered the Martial Artists Alliance and become an inner disciple of the Martial Artists Alliance. It is said that the higher-ups have already begun to pay attention to him. Is this true?" Hearing the news brought by Linger, Yuyin's heart was turned upside down. She could not calm down for a long time because she never thought that Longao would come to the Imperial City at this time and enter the Martial Artists Alliance. Yuyin did not need to guess. She had already guessed that Longao's purpose in coming here was definitely for her. "Senior sister, Longao changed his name to Black Wolf. I believe that other than you and me, no one else can recognize Longao. Therefore, senior sister, you must not act rashly. Once the Alliance and Master find out about Longao's true identity, Longao will definitely die. P.S. Little Nine should sleep first. Please vote. Again, if there are 100 monthly votes today, 10 chapters will explode." Chapter 930. Black Wolf. Yuyin wasn't a fool. She knew what it would mean if Longao's identity was exposed. "Senior sister, it seems like Longao is here for you." Something was wrong. "Linger, I want to ask you something. I hope you can answer me honestly. What do you think?" Tong Linger didn't know what her senior sister wanted to ask, but she still nodded. In the Martial Artists Alliance, the two of them had a good relationship. Otherwise, Tong Linger wouldn't be so nervous. "Linger, do you like Longao?" Tong Linger was shocked by her senior sister's words. It was easy to tell if a woman liked a man. Moreover, Tong Linger wasn't someone who liked to pretend. Seeing Linger's shocked expression, Yuyin knew that her guess was right. Yuyin didn't get angry. She seemed very calm. "Senior sister, listen to me." Yuyin waved her hand and said with a smile, "Linger, there's nothing wrong with liking someone. Although Longao is my lover, I don't have the right to stop others from liking Longao. What do you think?" Tong Linger didn't know what to say. It was as if she had done something wrong. "Senior sister, I'm sorry. I couldn't control myself." Looking at her junior sister, Yuyin sighed deeply in her heart. She said gently, "Linger, I really don't blame you. I know how it feels to like someone." Yuyin didn't know what to say. She felt very conflicted. On one hand, she didn't want to hurt her junior sister. On the other hand, she didn't want them to be together. However, Yuyin knew that some things would happen eventually. Sometimes, when fate arrived, no one could stop it. As if she didn't want to continue thinking about this problem, Linger asked, "Senior sister, what do you plan to do next?" How could Yuyin not know what Tong Linger was thinking? After pondering for a while, Yuyin said, "You're right. At this time, we can't let anyone know Longao's identity. I need to think about it first." Tong Linger and Yuyin both had their own thoughts. They didn't seem to be in the mood to continue shopping. They turned around and returned to the Martial Artists Alliance. In the Martial Artists Alliance, Longao directly knocked the 5 people unconscious, and immediately found a relatively secluded place to start cultivating. He was very clear in his heart that with his current status, it was impossible for him to see Yuyin. It was very difficult for the Martial Artists Alliance to find a person without knowing in advance. Without full confidence, Longao would not act rashly and alert the enemy. "Black Wolf, we are really fated to meet at this time." Longao, who was cultivating with all his might, suddenly saw Lu Tianxi in front of him. He didn't feel surprised at all. He didn't know much about the Martial Artists Alliance, but it didn't mean that Lu Tianxi didn't know about the Martial Artists Alliance. Because of this, it didn't seem surprising that Lu Tianxi found him in such a short time. One had to know that the 5 people who were looking for trouble were sent by Lu Tianxi. Standing up, Longao didn't take Lu Tianxi seriously at all. In the past, when he was only a Saint Emperor or Saint Emperor, he could already severely injure Lu Tianxi. Now that his cultivation had successfully broken through to the Crimson Great Emperor level, it was more than enough to deal with Lu Tianxi. He didn't hide the contempt in his eyes. Lu Tianxi was very angry. No matter what, he was still a Crimson Great Emperor. Even so, the other party didn't take him seriously at all. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't angry. Black Wolf, cut the crap. The grudge between you and me needs to be settled today. What do you want? Since things had already reached this stage, Longao was very clear that this matter had to be settled as soon as possible. Otherwise, there would be countless troubles in the process of him meeting Yuan. Life and Death Cliff, a battle of life and death. Life and Death Cliff? Battle of life and death? Longao didn't seem to know about the battle at the Life and Death Cliff that Lu Tianxi mentioned. After all, he had just joined the Martial Artists Alliance, and didn't know much about the Martial Artists Alliance. However, since Lu Tianxi had already challenged him, there was no need for him to back down. I accept the challenge. He smiled. Hearing the other party agree, Lu Tianxi smiled sinisterly and said, "Tomorrow at this time, I will be waiting for you at the Life and Death Cliff. I hope you will come then." Looking at Lu Tianxi, who turned and left, Longao didn't continue cultivating. Instead, he left to find out more about the Life and Death Cliff. After asking around, Longao finally knew what the Life and Death Cliff was. Martial Artists Alliance, Life and Death Cliff. According to the rules of the Martial Artists Alliance, no matter if it was an inner disciple, a core disciple, a guardian elder, or even a deputy leader, or even the leader, they could fight in private, but they couldn't kill. However, there was one place, and that was the Life and Death Cliff. No matter who it was, once they accepted the challenge and went to the Life and Death Cliff, no one would care whether they died or not. In other words, unless it was absolutely necessary, no one would be willing to go to the Life and Death Cliff. This kind of battle of life and death might not even happen in 10 days or half a month. Longao didn't let his guard down because Lu Tianxi wasn't a fool. He was able to severely injure him before, let alone now. However, Lu Tianxi was still full of confidence, so there must be something fishy going on. However, Longao had already decided that no matter what danger there was, he had to accept the challenge. The reason was simple. The grudge between him and Lu Tianxi had to be resolved as soon as possible. Since it was going to happen sooner or later, it was better to resolve it sooner rather than later. Because of this, Longao didn't even think about it. He would definitely go to the Life and Death Cliff for the battle tomorrow. At night, the stars dotted the sky. Longao sat alone under a big tree. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Longao's expression changed. Just as he was about to make a move, he cried out in surprise. Looking at the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him, he was pleasantly surprised. He said, "Linger, why are you here?" Although Longao's appearance had changed, his voice and aura couldn't be changed. Tong Ling had seen him before, so she immediately recognized that the black wolf in front of her was Longao. Tonglinger smiled mischievously and said, "Why can't it be me? I knew you would come, but I didn't expect you to come so quickly. Longao, I have to admit that you are really bold. Do you know where you are?" How could Longao not know what Linga was talking about? "I won't regret what I have decided. Is Yuan okay?" Hearing Longao asking about her senior sister, Linger didn't know why, but she felt a little jealous. However, she didn't show it on her face. She nodded and said, "Senior sister is okay, but she was worried when she heard the news of you coming. P.S. It's not that Xiaojio didn't work hard, it's that everyone didn't support her. The last 2 chapters will be delivered later." Chapter 931. His heart skipped a beat. Linger, do you mean that Yuin already knows that I'm here? Longao was very curious. Under normal circumstances, if Yuin knew that he was here, it was impossible for her not to appear. Did something happen to Yuin? She seemed to be able to guess Longao's thoughts. Tong Linger smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. But because of my master and the alliance, I can't see you now." So that was it. Longao was helpless about Yuin and Linger's master. Hades's strength and identity were there. Moreover, this was the Martial Artists Alliance's headquarters. Longao was almost certain that if his identity was exposed, not only him, but also Yuin would be in big trouble. "Linger, I want to ask you for a favor." For so many years, no matter what happened, no matter when, Longao had never begged anyone. But now, Longao was really worried about Yuin. Every minute delayed, Yuin and he would be in more trouble. "Longao, you don't have to say it. I know what you want to say. I can only tell you that I can't do it. I also hope that you won't act rashly. But..." Before Longao could speak, Linger continued. "Longao, you just joined the Martial Artists Alliance. You don't know how powerful the Martial Artists Alliance is. Even if you see me, you can't leave the Martial Artists Alliance." Regarding the meaning in Tong Linger's words, how could Longao not know? As one of the top 10 forces, the Martial Artists Alliance was a super-existence in the Tianwu continent, whether it was strength or background. Longao knew that even if he and Yuin left the Martial Artists Alliance, they could not escape the Martial Artists Alliance's pursuit. But would he choose to give up? "Linger, I won't act rashly. Right now, I just want to see Yuin." Linger stared deeply at Longao. Her heart ached bitterly, but she knew very well that she couldn't do this. Longao would always be her senior sisters. "Longao, I can only tell you that you shouldn't act recklessly. If you have the chance, you should leave the alliance first." Longao nodded and didn't say anything. As for what Linger said, he had thought about it for a long time. In the end, he decided that no matter what happened, he would enter the Martial Artists Alliance and bring Yuin with him. So what if it was the Martial Artists Alliance? No one could stop him from taking Yuin away, not even the Martial Artists Alliance. "Longao, I just heard that you've accepted Lu Tianxi's challenge and are preparing to have a battle to the death at the Life and Death Cliff tomorrow. Is that true?" Since it had already happened, Longao didn't continue to hide it. Then, Longao told Ling about the grudge between him and Lu Tianxi. After listening, Linger nodded. She seemed a little surprised and said, "Longao, do you know what kind of place the Life and Death Cliff is?" "I've already asked." The Martial Artists Alliance won't interfere no matter what happens at the Life and Death Cliff. I've already accepted Lu Tianxi's challenge. No matter what happens, I'll go to the Life and Death Cliff tomorrow. Longao had already made up his mind about this. The grudge between him and Lu Tianxi would have to be resolved sooner or later. Since that was the case, he might as well take advantage of the Life and Death Cliff to resolve this battle. "Longao, once you go to the Alliance's Life and Death Cliff, no matter who wins or loses, one of you has to stay. Otherwise, both of you can't leave at the same time. If you fight with Lu Tianxi..." Although Linger didn't finish her words, the meaning in her words was very clear. Longao's cultivation was only a Saint Emperor before. In just a few months, no matter how fast his cultivation speed was, it was impossible for him to break through from a Saint Emperor to a Great Emperor. However, Lu Tianxi was a genuine Crimson Great Emperor. The difference in strength between the two was too great. In Tong Linger's opinion, with Longao's strength, once he fought with Lu Tianxi, it wouldn't bode well for him. A Saint Emperor was only a joke in front of a Great Emperor. "Linger, don't worry. I'm confident that I can defeat Lu Tianxi." Linger seemed to be very surprised. She didn't know where Longao's confidence came from. After all, the strength of a Crimson Great Emperor was far stronger than Longao. If it was an ordinary person, they definitely wouldn't accept the challenge. However, this was Longao. He knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, but he still went to the mountain. However, in the next second, Linger's expression changed abruptly. Her face was filled with disbelief as she exclaimed, "So your cultivation has already broken through to the Crimson Great Emperor." Crimson Great Emperor? Tong Linger found it hard to imagine that Longao had broken through from the Saint Emperor realm to the Great Emperor realm in just a few months. If she didn't feel it for herself, she wouldn't believe it even if she was beaten to death. With such cultivation speed, not to mention in the 9 continents continent, even in the 10 directions tripod, he would definitely be a top existence. Tong Ling finally understood why Longao was so confident. Longao, even if your cultivation has already reached the Crimson Great Emperor realm, there's no need for you to go to the life and death cliff with Lu Tianxi. With a wave of his hand, Longao had already decided on this matter. Linger, you don't have to worry about me. I've already said that I'm confident that I can win tomorrow's battle of life and death. Longao didn't want to continue dwelling on this matter. He said some other things to Linger before sending Tong Linger away. Then, he entered his cultivation state. If it was a battle under normal circumstances, Longao wouldn't have the slightest bit of worry. However, the problem now was that he didn't know what Lu Tianxi was up to. It was easy to guess. If Lu Tianxi wasn't hiding something, why would he choose to have a battle of life and death with him at the life and death cliff? It was better to be safe. The news of Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi's battle was spread by someone. Soon many people in the Martial Artists Alliance knew about it. A battle of life and death at the life and death cliff was rarely seen under normal circumstances. After all, there would always be people who would fall at the life and death cliff every time there was a battle of life and death. In this world, no matter where one went, there would always be people who liked to watch a show. However, the battle of life and death between Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi obviously didn't have much influence. No matter what, both of them came from outside and weren't inner and core disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance. Even so, there were still hundreds of people watching at the life and death cliff. It was a quiet night. The next morning, Longao and Lu Tianxi both rushed to the life and death cliff. Before the two of them arrived, there was already a sea of people in front of the life and death cliff. Every one of them was an inner disciple. As for core disciples, there weren't many of them, only about 1/10 of them. In other words, among the hundreds of people, there were only 10 core disciples, and they were the weakest core disciples. On the life and death cliff, there were stone walls on both sides and a black cliff on the east side. There was only one exit. If two people were to have a battle of life and death, regardless of life and death, only one person could leave the life and death cliff alive. As for the other person, he had to stay on the life and death cliff. Chapter 932. Cliff of Life and Death. The Martial Artists Alliance would not interfere regardless of life and death. Other than Longao and Lu Tianxi, there was no one else on the cliff of life and death. No matter what, this was a life and death battle between the two of them. If it wasn't for the fact that they were bored, no one would be willing to interfere. Moreover, the Martial Artists Alliance had a rule that once the two of them entered the cliff of life and death, no one was allowed to interfere. Otherwise, they would be killed immediately. In the crowd, Mei Kai looked at Black Wolf coldly. For some reason, he couldn't make a move yet. However, the grudge between him and Black Wolf had been settled. "Black Wolf, I have to admire your courage. You actually dared to come," he snorted coldly. Longao's face was full of disdain. He said coldly, "Cut the crap. If you want to fight, then fight. If not, jump off the cliff." "Good, good, good." After saying, "good" 3 times, Lu Tianxi's body had already dashed out in the next second. Before he arrived, his palms were already moving, waving back and forth. Palm shadows filled the sky. It was impossible to see his palms. Longao didn't dare to be careless. He didn't use spatial teleportation. There were many Martial Artists Alliance disciples watching this battle at the cliff of life and death. If the Martial Artists Alliance knew that he had a trump card, then he would be in endless trouble. It wouldn't be easy to kill Lu Tianxi without using his trump card. Both of his fists smashed out fiercely. Fist shadows filled the sky. Fist shadows were everywhere. Two fists and two palms collided fiercely. With a boom, both of them took 3 steps back. Both of them looked at each other coldly. They both took a deep breath. Then, both of them charged towards each other at the same time. In the blink of an eye, both of them were already engaged in a fierce battle. Fist shadows and palm shadows were everywhere. It was impossible to tell who was who. Both of them were crimson-grade great emperors. Their battle skills had already reached the level of core disciples. Because of this, the spectators were all extremely nervous. No one expected the battle between the two to be so exciting. Emperor Dragon's 9 kills. Unable to use other trump cards, Longao could only use the Emperor Dragon 9 fatal blows. However, for safety's sake, Longao did not use the Godslayer sword. No matter what, the legend of the Godslayer sword was there for all to see. It was better to be safe than sorry. If someone were to recognize the Godslayer's sword, he would be in big trouble. This was the first time Longao had tried to fuse the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills into his fists. As for how powerful it was still unknown. The Emperor Dragon's 9 fatal slashes were the Emperor Dragon's Raging Waves, Emperor Dragon's Heaven Burial, Emperor Dragon's Strangulation, Emperor Dragon's Dominance, Emperor Dragon's Collapse, Emperor Dragon's Meteor Explosion, Emperor Dragon's Heart Devour, and Emperor Dragon's Destruction of the Heavens. Although Longao was unable to cultivate the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills to its peak, even so, when he brandished it, it was still as vigorous as a tiger. Longao forcefully suppressed the dragon's roar. This way, although the power of the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills would weaken, no one would discover the secret within. Punch after punch, the punches never stopped. Lu Tianxi was completely suppressed by Longao. If he was not careful, he would be killed by the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills. Longao had never imagined that fusing the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills into his fists would be so powerful. Take his life while he is down. Of course, Longao would not let go of such a rare opportunity. He fused his fists with the Emperor Dragon's 9 kills and attacked wildly. Domain power. Lu Tianxi had no choice but to use his domain power. However, what Lu Tianxi did not expect was that his opponent's domain power was also suppressing him. F***ck, Lu Tianxi could not understand why his opponent was always suppressing him. Black Wolf, don't think that you can defeat me. I will show you the power of the Ironback Azure Bear. Before Longao could react, a terrifying roar resounded. Following that, a gigantic Azure Bear appeared. It was the Ironback Azure Bear that Lu Tianxi had just mentioned. The Ironback Azure Bear was an orange-level Great Sovereign Spiritual Beast. Longao finally knew why Lu Tianxi was so confident. He knew that he was no match for him, but he still wanted to challenge him. It turned out that he was prepared. An orange-level Great Sovereign Spiritual Beast, the Ironback Azure Bear, was not only powerful, its physical defense was also extraordinary. Because of this, Longao did not dare to be careless. A man and a bear, left and right. At the life and death cliff. Seeing Lu Tianxi summon the Ironback Azure Bear, everyone cursed in their hearts. Lu Tianxi's method was obviously unkind. Lu Tianxi is really shameless. It's a fair battle, but he summoned the Ironback Azure Bear. No one will care about the process in a battle of life and death. They only care about the result. If Lu Tianxi wins, who will say that he's treacherous? Hearing this, everyone nodded with an expression of agreement. Among the crowd, seeing Lu Tianxi summon an orange-level Great Sovereign Spiritual Beast, the Ironback Azure Bear, Tong Linger's face instantly turned gloomy. She did not expect Lu Tianxi to be so shameless. Although she was worried, Tong Linger did not make a move in the end. The reason was simple. The Martial Artists Alliance had a clear rule. No one was allowed to interfere in the battle of life and death at the life and death cliff. Not only him, even his master, Hades, was not allowed to interfere. Lu Tianci and the Ironback Azure Bear combined their strength. "Senior sister, what should we do?" It turned out that Yuyin had been waiting at the life and death cliff for a long time. When Yuyin saw Longao for the first time, her whole body trembled. However, her rationality told her that she must not acknowledge Longao. Otherwise, Longao would be in big trouble. Yuyin's whole body was covered in black. No one could recognize her. Otherwise, Yuyin's appearance would definitely cause a commotion. However, ever since Yuyin was brought back to the Martial Artists Alliance, it had caused a huge commotion. According to the legends, Yuyin had a physique that only appeared once in 10,000 years. In just a few years, she had broken through to the divine realm from an insignificant post-liminary realm warrior. What kind of concept was that? Moreover, Yuyin's beauty could definitely be ranked in the top 3 even in the Martial Artists Alliance. Therefore, the men who pursued Yuyin were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. Of course, Yuyin knew what it meant when Lu Tianci suddenly summoned the Ironback Azure Bear. However, the Martial Artists Alliance had a rule, and she could not kill Longao. Therefore, she would not make a move easily until the last moment. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Yuyin trusted Longao very much. Perhaps no one knew Longao's character better than she did. Without full confidence, Longao would not accept the challenge. Therefore, Yuyin shook her head and said, "Let's wait and see. I choose to believe him." "Believe?" Tonglinger smiled bitterly. She also wanted to choose to believe, but when she saw the Ironback Azure Bear, she felt powerless. Chapter 933. At the Cliff of Life and Death. Longao was fighting 1 against 2 and was gradually losing. If Longao used all kinds of trump cards, he might not lose. But the problem now was that he couldn't use spatial teleportation or the god-slaying sword. The only thing he could do was to integrate the Emperor Dragon 9 kills into his fists and continuously attack the man and the beast. As the battle continued to escalate, Longao's face became more and more ugly. If he fought Lu Tianci alone, Longao was confident that he could kill Lu Tianci within 10 moves. But now, the Ironback Blue Bear was still an orange-grade great sovereign spirit beast. Just the power of its realm alone was not something a first-grade realm could resist. Fighting 1 against 2, Longao was hit hard by Lu Tianci's palm. Tonglinger and Yuyin were both shocked. Seeing that Longao had forcefully withstood it, the two of them heaved a sigh of relief. But even so, they became more and more worried. As the saying goes, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. In this world where strength was respected, no one would care about the process, only the result. In other words, no matter how despicable and shameless Lu Tianci was, as long as Lu Tianci won in the end, no one would care about this matter. This was the reality. Longao knew very well that if he continued to fight, he would die. Did he have to use spatial teleportation, the god-slaying sword, the Chaos Stone Tablet, etc.? Unless it was a last resort, he absolutely could not use these trump cards. No matter what, this was the Martial Arts Alliance. There were as many experts as there were clouds in the sky. There were as many experts as there were hairs on a cow. Who knew if there were any Supreme Divine Path experts around? Bang! There was a loud bang. Longao's fist smashed hard on the Steelback Blue Bear's body. However, the Steelback Blue Bear's physical defense was too strong. Even the power of Longao's arms couldn't break through the physical defense. In the end, the reason why Longao was unable to break through the Steelback Blue Bear's physical defense was not only because of the Steelback Blue Bear's powerful physical defense, but also because of its cultivation level. If Longao's cultivation base could successfully break through the orange-grade Great Emperor realm, it wouldn't be impossible for him to break through the Steelback Azure Bear's physical defense with the power of his arms. However, in the current situation, Longao was only a crimson-grade Great Emperor, not an orange-grade Great Emperor. Both of his fists moved at the same time, and the shadows of his fists flickered. He could not even see Longao's figure. Although he didn't use spatial teleportation, Longao's speed was very fast, like a breeze blowing past. Black Wolf, I'll show you the true power of the Ironback Azure Bear. What did he mean? Longao didn't understand Lu Tianxi's words, but in the next second, Lu Tianxi laughed coldly. The other two Ironback Blue Bears suddenly appeared in everyone's line of sight. 3 great Emperor-level spirit beasts, Ironback Azure Bears. What kind of concept was this? Even if it was a one-on-one battle, it would be extremely difficult for Longao to kill an Ironback Azure Bear, let alone fighting against 4 great Emperor-level spirit beasts. Things had already come to this point. Longao had naturally already guessed that Lu Tianxi's true goal was nothing more than wanting to borrow the 3 Ironback Azure Bears to join hands and kill him. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't afraid. The strength of the 3 Ironback Azure Bears was completely above the 3 orange grade Great Emperor-level spirit beasts. When 1 man and 3 beasts joined forces, their power would instantly increase by more than 10 times. In front of the life and death cliff, when Lu Tianxi summoned the other 2 Ironback Azure Bears, everyone cursed in their hearts. After all, Lu Tianxi's method was extremely shameless. 3 Ironback Azure Bears. Many people were very curious as to why Lu Tianxi could have 3 orange grade Great Emperor-level spirit beasts. After all, Lu Tianxi was only a crimson grade Great Emperor-level spirit beasts. The difference between him and the 3 Ironback Azure Bears was huge. Senior sister, Lu Tianxi is obviously playing dirty. If that's the case, Longao won't be able to withstand it. Yuyin didn't say anything, but her face under her black clothes was extremely ugly. She was also very worried. After all, the opponent had 3 Ironback Azure Bears. 1 against 4. Even an orange grade Great Emperor-level spirit beasts wouldn't be able to leave the life and death cliff alive, let alone a crimson grade Great Emperor-level spirit beasts. Should she make a move? Yuyin was very clear what it meant if she made a move. If her master was still alive and the other elders were in the dark, then the situation would be irreversible. Should she wait a little longer? Senior sister, if you can't make a move, why don't I do it? Waving her hand, Yuyin said softly, Linger, don't be impatient. I believe that Longao will be able to handle it. Ah? Yuyin's words gave Tonglinger a fright. After all, the opponent had 3 Ironback Azure Bears, and Longao was only 1 person. In terms of cultivation realm, he was already inferior. If there were no accidents, it was almost impossible for Longao to defeat Lu Tianxi. What if Longao died at the life and death cliff? However, Yuyin still didn't make a move. She didn't know why, but Yuyin had always believed in Longao. This was the meaning of trust. The 3 Ironback Azure Bears surrounded Longao. Lu Tianxi sneered and looked coldly at the besieged Black Wolf. This battle at the life and death cliff was a trap set up by Lu Tianxi, and made Shui to kill Longao in the life and death cliff. Of course, the 3 Ironback Azure Bears didn't belong to Lu Tianxi. They were 3 Emperor Spirit Beasts that Mei Kai had found. As a yellow grade Great Sovereign, it was a piece of cake for Mei Kai to find 3 orange grade Great Sovereign Spirit Beasts. Mei Kai's intention of not making a move was clear. If something happened, Lu Tianxi would be the scapegoat. Lu Tianxi wasn't a fool, of course, he knew what Mei Kai meant. But what could he do? Even though he knew, he had to do it. He knew that things had already reached this stage. Even if he didn't make a move, not only would he fail to kill Black Wolf, but he would also offend Mei Kai. Although Mei Kai was only a consecrator of the Martial Artists Alliance, his identity and strength couldn't be underestimated. Now that he was in the Martial Artists Alliance, he would have to rely on Mei Kai for many things in the future. Therefore, he could offend anyone but Mei Kai. However, the reason why Lu Tianxi was willing to be the scapegoat was because he was full of confidence. After all, Mei Kai had found 3 orange grade Great Sovereign Spirit Beasts for him. He didn't believe that Black Wolf could defeat him in a 1 versus 3 battle. Therefore, the life and death battle at the life and death cliff took place. Although Lu Tianxi was a little shameless in this battle, in this real world, no one cared about the process. Some of the onlookers had already left. It was almost certain that Black Wolf wouldn't be able to kill the 3 ironback azure bears by himself. The result was simple. Black Wolf would be besieged to death. Whether it was Tong Linger or Yuan, they were ready to make a move at any time. Although they had full confidence in Longao, they had to be careful. If something happened to Longao, they would have to make a move. Author's note: today's small matter, 3 chapters, tomorrow's explosion, 5 chapters. Chapter 934. The Martial Artists Alliance had made it clear that no matter what happened, no one was allowed to interfere with the matters of the life and death cliff. However, Yuan and Linger had decided that if anything happened to Longao, they would ignore the Martial Artists Alliance. Life and Death Cliff. The battle of life and death had reached its climax. Longao was gradually unable to hold on. After much consideration, Longao decided to use the Annihilation Divine Bow. There were 3 reasons why he chose the Annihilation Divine Bow. The first reason was that the Annihilation Divine Bow was already damaged. Normal people wouldn't be able to tell what was different about it. The second reason was that ever since Longao obtained the Annihilation Divine Bow, he hadn't truly witnessed its power. He would take this opportunity to use the Annihilation Divine Bow. The third reason was that he had already sensed that Tong Linger was in front of the life and death cliff. Even if the Annihilation Divine Bow drained all his energy, he wouldn't be afraid. Things had already come to this point. Longao was very clear that in this battle, either you die or I die. After dodging the 3 ironback blue bears with a punch, Longao took out the ordinary Annihilation Divine Bow. What was the meaning of this? Seeing the broken bow that Black Wolf took out, everyone was very curious. After all, the battle had already reached this stage. Black Wolf seemed to be powerless. Ha ha ha, Black Wolf, if you're willing to kneel and beg for mercy, I'll let you go. Shameless. Shameless to the extreme. Hearing Lu Tianxi's words, everyone cursed in their hearts. Anyone could guess that Lu Tianxi wouldn't let Black Wolf go. Even if Black Wolf knelt and begged for mercy, the result would still be the same. The corner of his mouth slowly curled into a cold smile. It was this smile that caused Lu Tianxi to be stunned. Perhaps he was too afraid of his opponent. Lu Tianxi didn't know why, but his heart skipped a beat. Could it be that his opponent still had a trick up his sleeve? However, when Lu Tianxi saw the 3 orange-grade Great Emperor Ironback blue bears besieging the Black Wolf, the worry in his heart instantly vanished. He didn't believe that the other party could leave the Cliff of Doom alive. Lu Tianxi clearly knew that he could only win this battle. He could not afford to lose. Once he lost the battle, even if he did not die on the life and death cliff, he believed that Mei Kai would not let him go. With Mei Kai's strength, wanting to deal with him was simply an easy matter. But in the next second, Lu Tianxi's expression changed. He was frightened and even panicked. It wasn't just Lu Tianxi. Everyone else was also shocked. Everyone could clearly sense an unparalleled power erupting from Black Wolf in the distance. Strictly speaking, it was the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand that released this powerful force. What exactly happened? According to Long Fu, as long as he poured all of his energy into the silent divine bow, then with his strength as a crimson-grade Great Emperor, he would be able to draw the divine bow a little. According to the current power of the silent divine bow, he would be able to kill an orange-grade Great Emperor. It was said, but it was done. Longao was also looking forward to the power of the silent divine bow. After all, Long Fu had already said that the silent divine bow was a super-divine weapon among super-divine weapons. Its power was comparable to the blood pool. At its peak, the silent divine bow's power could even destroy the heavens and earth. Borrowing the strength of his entire body, Longao slowly began to draw the bow. Just as expected. The silent divine bow was simply too difficult to draw. Even if he used all of his strength, Longao realized that he could only draw the bow less than 1%. What kind of concept was this? The length of a thumb. Even so, Longao could clearly feel the terrifying aura emitted by the silent divine bow. Just how powerful was it? It was simply too powerful. At this moment, Longao's heart was filled with shock. Without any hesitation, Longao continued to draw the bow. This was because he knew clearly that the longer he drew the bow, the stronger the power. The stronger the power, the higher the chance of killing the three-headed steel-back ash bear. Lu Tianzi was shocked to the extreme, and also terrified to the extreme. He could feel the terrifying power from the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that even if he had the help of the three-headed steel-back ash bear, he wouldn't be a match for the other party. This seemed to be somewhat impossible, but he did have such a feeling. It was better to be safe than sorry. If he were to fail miserably, wouldn't he be dead for sure? Because of this, Lu Tianzi was prepared to leave the life and death cliff in order to be absolutely safe. Revenge was a dish best served cold. He had plenty of time. As long as he had Mei Kai's help, he could kill the Black Wolf anytime and anywhere. Why would he take this risk? Lu Tianzi was very afraid of death. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left the life and death cliff. However, the situation at this moment was completely different. Longao had already drawn the silent divine bow. His aura instantly locked onto Lu Tianzi and the three-headed steel-back ash bear. That's right. Even if the steel-back ash bear had reached the orange-grade Great Emperor realm, it was still locked onto by the silent divine bow. The locking of the silent divine bow wasn't an ordinary locking. Under the locking, both Lu Tianzi and the three-headed steel-back ash bear couldn't move an inch. It was as if someone had nailed them to the ground. Black Wolf, how dare you? Why wouldn't I dare? Longao found it funny. It was hard for him to imagine that Lu Tianzi still dared to threaten him. Lu Tianzi was extremely terrified. He was locked onto by a mysterious force. Even if he wanted to leave, he couldn't. Until now, he still didn't know what had happened. Lu Tianzi wanted to ask for Mei Kai's help. When he wanted to speak, he was even more terrified when he realized that he couldn't even open his mouth. What happened? Lu Tianzi and the three-headed steel-back ash bear couldn't move. It was as if they were locked onto by the aura. No one knew what had happened. Why would their bodies be locked onto without any reason? Seeing the reversal of the situation, Yuyin and Ling were overjoyed. They held each other's hands nervously. This battle was a matter of life and death. Therefore, Longao couldn't lose. Lu Tianzi, this is a battle of life and death. It's not up to you. They could only see Lu Tianzi's mouth moving, but no sound came out. Everyone was shocked. Everyone was guessing whether the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand was a powerful divine weapon. Divine weapons might be something high and unattainable for ordinary people. However, for the disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance, especially the core disciples and inner disciples, even if they couldn't get their hands on a divine weapon, they had seen many of them. However, under normal circumstances, no matter if it was an inner disciple or a core disciple, there were very few people who possessed a divine artifact. Because of this, no one would have thought that a little inner disciple would actually possess such a powerful divine artifact. No wonder this person was so fearless. Chapter 935. The Silent Divine Bow. Its aura was locked onto Lu Tianzi and the three steel-back blue bears. Longao sneered, ignoring the fact that the power in his body was rapidly depleting. Since things had come to this point, he had to borrow the power of the silent divine bow to kill Lu Tianzi and the three steel-back blue bears. No matter how Longao pulled the bow, it was still the size of a thumb. Longao knew that with his current strength, he could only pull the bow to this extent. Since that was the case, Longao did not continue to pull the bow. He released his right hand and a ball of black light shot out. The silent divine bow did not have an arrow. In other words, the arrow that Longao used to pull the bow was formed by power. Boom! There was a loud noise. There was no suspense. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Lu Tianxi and the three steel-backed blue bears were enveloped by the ball of light and turned into dust in the blink of an eye. One move to kill. What did that mean? Looking at the man and the three beasts that had disappeared, everyone was completely stunned. Because until now, no one had thought that the broken bow in Black Wolf's hand would be so powerful. Longao's body was on the verge of collapsing. Using the silent divine bow by force, he could not even stand firmly. Long Fu had already said that with Longao's current strength, if he used the silent divine bow by force, all the power in his body would be instantly drained. In other words, with his current situation, not to mention a great emperor, even a Hotian realm warrior could easily kill him. This was the consequence of using the silent divine bow by force. In the battle of life and death, Black Wolf won and Lu Tianxi lost. No one had expected this result. Tong Linger seemed to be unable to bear it. Her body flashed, and she had already entered the life and death cliff. She directly supported the Black Wolf, who was the so-called Longao. "Are you all right?" With a smile, Longao guessed that Tong Linger would definitely come to help him. As for Yuan, he did not know that Yuan was here. Otherwise, he would not have acted like this. "I'm fine. Help me get out of here." Although Tong Linger didn't know how Longao did it, she knew that Longao must have used some kind of secret technique to kill Lu Tianxi in one move and bring 3 orange Great Emperor Spirit Beasts with him. Tong Linger was definitely a celebrity in the Martial Artists Alliance. Although Tong Linger wasn't as fiery as Yuan, she still had a lot of suitors. All this time, Tong Linger had always rejected countless people with the same expression, no matter who they were. Because of this, everyone was shocked when they saw Yuan helping a person who had just joined the Martial Artists Alliance. All of a sudden, Longao had many more enemies. "What do you want?" Tong Linger's expression was extremely ugly. This was because many Martial Artists Alliance disciples blocked their way. Their intentions were clear. Black Wolf's strength is not bad. He actually killed Lu Tianxi in one move. How about this? Since I have nothing to do, why don't we have a battle? Black Wolf, do you dare to accept the challenge? Looking at the people in front of him challenging him, Longao was extremely depressed. He did not expect Tong Linger to be so popular in the Martial Artists Alliance. Under normal circumstances, he would not hesitate to accept the challenge. However, he was powerless now. "If you want to challenge me, I will definitely accept the challenge in 3 days." The person who challenged Tong Linger was called Tengli. He was one of the stronger ones among the core disciples. Tengli's strength was even above Mei Kai. He had reached the peak of the yellow-grade Great Emperor realm. Among Tong Linger's many pursuers, Tengli was one of the more hard-working ones. However, Tong Linger had never said anything nice to him. Therefore, Tengli felt extremely uncomfortable when he saw Tong Linger supporting a disciple who had just joined the Martial Artists Alliance. As for the battle just now, Tengli had already guessed that the reason He Lang was able to kill Lu Tianxi was because of the broken bow in his hand. Moreover, the after-effects were very severe. Otherwise, He Lang would not be on the verge of collapse and even need someone to support him. One had to admit that Tengli was a righteous person. Nodding, Tengli said, "Okay, I will wait for you at the Cliff of Life and Death in 3 days. Tengli, don't go too far." Waving his hand, Tengli looked as if he had just realized something. He said, "Oh right, there is no big grudge between us. How about this, you and I will fight in 3 days. We will not be at the Cliff of Life and Death. If you lose, don't bother junior sister Tong Linger anymore." Just as Tong Linger was about to say something, Longao stopped her. "It's a deal. You can't go back on your word." With Tong Linger's support, Longao slowly left the Cliff of Life and Death and walked towards the distance. Gradually, the two of them disappeared from the crowd's sight. Hey Lang, I'd like to see just how powerful the god weapon in your hand is. Other than being jealous, Tingley also wanted to see the divine weapon in Black Wolf's hand. He had watched the battle between Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi without blinking. It would be a lie to say that he was not greedy. A mere Crimson Grade Great Emperor martial artist was able to use the power of a divine weapon to kill 3 Orange Grade Great Emperor spiritual beasts. This meant that the divine weapon was not to be underestimated. Tingley could even imagine that if he could obtain this divine weapon, wouldn't it mean that with his strength as a Yellow Grade Great Emperor, he could even kill a Green Grade Great Emperor martial artist in one move? Thinking of this, the greed in Tingley's eyes became more obvious. In the crowd, Yuyin, who was shrouded in black, stared at the two figures that were gradually disappearing. She felt very sour in her heart because what happened just now should have been done by her. But what was the result? Yuyin knew very well that Ling had really fallen in love with Longao. It seemed like this matter was going to be troublesome. Others might not know Linger's true identity, but how could she not know? If Longao and Linger really got together, the consequences would be unimaginable. What should I do? Yuyin couldn't wait to find Longao immediately. After not seeing Longao for so long, Yuyin felt very uncomfortable. The person she loved was right in front of her, but she could only see him. It was really torturous. Let's wait a little longer. In the end, Yuyin chose to wait to see Longao again. Because Yuyin knew that her identity was definitely not suitable for them to meet at this time. She was not afraid that something would happen to her, but she was worried that Longao would be implicated. No matter what, this was the martial artists' alliance. With Longao's strength, there was no way he could compete with the martial artists' alliance. The difference between the two was too big. Longao going against the martial artists' alliance was like an egg hitting a rock. Because of this, Yuyin endured in the end. P.S. Sorry, I made a mistake just now. Tomorrow is 5 chapters, not 10. I just took a look and was shocked. Everyone, please forgive me. Chapter 936. In a secluded courtyard in the Martial Artists Alliance. With Tong Linger's status in the Martial Artists Alliance, it was easy for her to find a secluded courtyard. As soon as he stepped into the courtyard, Longao immediately sat on the ground and began to recover. After seeing the power of the godly destroyer Bao, Longao was filled with emotions. The only drawback was that once he used the godly destroyer Bao, his strength would be drained instantly. After a while, even a warrior in the acquired realm could easily kill him. Tong Linger stood quietly by the side. She didn't say anything and just watched. No one knew what Tong Linger was thinking, but her eyes revealed a trace of affection. Senior sister, don't you want to go in and see Longao? Outside the courtyard. Tong Linger was extremely unwilling to see them meet, but she was a kind girl. In the end, she was prepared to help them meet. Yuyin shook her head and sighed helplessly. No. Longao defeated Lu Tianxi and killed 3 ironback blue bears. If I'm not mistaken, he should be noticed by the higher-ups. She was shocked. Of course, Tong Linger knew what her senior sister meant. If the higher-ups noticed, then Longao's identity would be exposed at any time. Then wouldn't Longao be in danger? Senior sister, what should we do? After a deep sigh, Yuyin thought for a while and said, Linger, you are a little reckless this time. What do you mean? Longao used the godly weapon in the fight with Lu Tianxi. It attracted everyone's attention. Plus, your sudden appearance attracted even more attention. If her senior sister didn't mention it, Linger wouldn't have known. Now that she thought about it, she was a little scared. Just as her senior sister said, she shouldn't have helped Longao. If she did that, she would have made countless enemies for Longao for no reason. Linger, it's not just Tingley. I believe many people want to make trouble for Longao. We have to think of a way. Otherwise, Longao will have a hard time in the Martial Artists Alliance in the future. How could Tong Linger not know about this? However, Tong Linger really didn't know what to do. Linger, senior sister wants to ask you for a favor. Senior sister, please speak. Yuyin looked like she wanted to say something, but in the end, she thought about it and said, Linger, back then, the Alliance leader arranged a cultivation Saint Emperor for you. I hope you can take Longao there and hide for a while. Is that okay? Yuyin was worried to the extreme. Not to mention the trouble in the future, just the battle 3 days later, Yuyin did not have the slightest confidence. No matter what, Tingli was still a peak yellow grade Great Emperor. Even if Longao could kill an orange grade Great Emperor spiritual beast, it was still unknown whether he could defeat a yellow grade Great Emperor martial artist. If by any chance, Longao was really unable to defeat Tingli, what should they do at that time? Moreover, Yuyin knew very well that even if Longao could defeat Tingli in 3 days, how would they deal with the endless dangers in the future? Because of this, Yuyin thought of this method. Senior sister, others don't know my identity, but you definitely know. When father gave me the Aquamoon Paradise, he told me again and again that no one, not even my master, could enter the Aquamoon Paradise. Yuyin also had some understanding of the Aquamoon heavenly abode. Legend had it that the Alliance leader cultivated in seclusion in the Aquamoon Paradise. For some reason, the Alliance leader immediately went into seclusion to cultivate after giving the Aquamoon Paradise to Tong Linger. Under normal circumstances, he rarely appeared. Yuyin didn't say anything because it wasn't appropriate for her to say anything. The choice was still in Linger's hands. Senior sister, I know what you mean. No matter what, I will bring Longao to the Aquamoon Paradise in 3 days. What I'm worried about is that Longao can't stay in the Aquamoon Paradise forever. What will happen after he leaves? Let's talk about this later. Tong Linger nodded. Without Longao knowing, the two had already decided on something. In the Dragon Seal space. After recovering for a whole day and night, Longao finally recovered 3/10 of his strength and could move freely. Master, how do you feel? Shaking his head helplessly, Longao said in a depressed tone. The silent divine bow is too powerful. It only took one move to kill Lu Tianxi and the 3 ironback blue bears. However, as you said before, with my current strength, if I use the silent divine bow forcefully, my strength will be instantly depleted. Regarding this, Longao felt helpless. Under normal circumstances, he couldn't use the silent divine bow. Unless there were friends present or all of them were killed in one move, he definitely couldn't use the silent divine bow. As for the power of the silent divine bow, Longao was also amazed. According to Long Fu, the power of the silent divine bow was less than 1/10,000th of its peak. Even so, he could use the silent divine bow to kill the 3 orange grade Great Emperor spiritual beasts. It was hard to imagine how powerful the silent divine bow would be at its peak. Master, there's no need to say more about the power of the silent divine bow. I've thought about it these past few days. If there's a chance, I'll help you recover the power of the silent divine bow. Nodding his head, Longao had thought about the silent divine bow. No matter how difficult it was, he had to think of a way to get the silent divine bow. With the silent divine bow in hand, the world was mine. Long Fu, do you have a way? Leave it to me. Master, you only have one thing to do now, which is to increase your strength as fast as possible. Longao was curious. According to what Long Fu had said, he couldn't be too hasty in his cultivation. After all, there were only disadvantages and no benefits. But now, Long Fu had said something like that. What did Long Fu mean? Longao was confused and asked. Long Fu, what do you mean? Master, now that you've entered the Martial Artists Alliance, I believe that it won't be long before you come into contact with the true experts of the Tianwu continent. At that time, with your current strength, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to move an inch. Hearing this, Longao instantly understood what Long Fu meant. Just as Long Fu had said, now that he had officially entered the Martial Artists Alliance, he could be considered to have stepped into the ranks of the superpowers of the Tianwu continent. Just the strength of a great emperor was not enough. Let alone great emperors, even divine Dao experts, even transcendent divine Dao experts, wanting to gain a foothold in the martial heaven continent was not an easy task. Longao was very clear that the supreme god was not the peak of the martial Dao. There were only two people who had stepped onto the peak of the martial Dao. One was the heavenly Dao, and the other was the divine mathematician. In the end, everything depended on one's strength. Chapter 937. In the courtyard. Longao was still quietly recovering. The next day, noon. Longao opened his eyes, stood up, and stretched. Linger, thank you so much. Shaking her head, Linger said worriedly. Longao, I didn't know that I would bring you so much trouble. I hope that you won't go to the battle with Tingli tomorrow. Tungli? Longao already knew who the person who challenged him was. Through Linger's explanation, Longao was also surprised. Tingli was considered average among the core disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance. He was a good person, but he was one of Tong Linger's many pursuers. Longao finally knew why Tingli wanted to challenge him. Without a doubt, Tingli treated him as a love rival. Who did he offend? As for Tingli's strength, Longao was more or less afraid of him. Longao knew the difference between Tingli and a yellow-grade great emperor. Even if he used the Annihilation Divine Bow, he might not be able to kill Tingli. As for realm power, his slaughter power was only a level 3 realm. The difference between a red-grade great emperor and a yellow-grade great emperor was too big. However, he had already accepted the challenge, so Longao decided that no matter what happened, he would accept the challenge. This was a matter of principle as a martial artist. Linger, as a martial artist, since I have already accepted the challenge, then no matter what happens, I will go to the battle with Tingli tomorrow. Idiot! Tong Linger stomped her feet in anger and said helplessly. Longao, I don't care about the battle tomorrow, but you have to come with me to a place now. What place? You will know when you come. Longao was very curious. He didn't know where Linger wanted to take him, but he couldn't argue with her. Helpless, he could only follow Linger out of the courtyard. Martial Artists Alliance, in an extremely hidden secret room. Yi, you're looking for me? Shangguaniye was the deputy chief of the Martial Artists Alliance. His strength was unfathomable. Not only that, Shangguaniye was also the ancestor of the Shangguan family. Because of him, the Shangguan family had the highest status among the 4 families. Under normal circumstances, the other 3 families did not dare to provoke the Shangguan family. Shangguaniye was at least 200 or 300 years old, but she looked like she was in her early 30s. If other people saw her, they would be shocked speechless. The middle-aged man in front of Shangguaniye was none other than the leader of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi. As the Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi's strength could be said to be one of the strongest in the Sky Martial Continent. He could even contend against the Dragon Clan's patriarch. One could imagine how strong Tong Tiandi was. In front of the Alliance Master, Shangguaniye was trembling with fear. She knew very well that with her strength, she was just a joke in front of the Alliance Master. Alliance Master, a few days ago, a disciple named Black Wolf entered the Alliance. It is said that he came from Blackwater City. He is a Deputy Hall Master. Because he was delayed entering the Alliance, he was classified as an inner disciple. Get to the point. Tong Tiandi was obviously getting impatient. His voice gradually turned cold. Tong Tiandi was also a little curious. He knew Shangguaniye very well. She wouldn't risk her own anger for such a small matter. Just as expected. Alliance Master, this person accepted a challenge from a Crimson Grade Great Emperor as soon as he entered the Alliance. At the Life and Death Cliff, the two of them had a life and death battle. Then, Shangguaniye told the Alliance Master everything about Longao, Lu Tianxi, and the 3 Ironback Azure Bears. From the beginning to the end, Tong Tiandi didn't react at all. This was because the life and death battle between inner disciples and core disciples happened almost every month. As the Alliance Master, if he had to worry about everything, wouldn't he be exhausted to death? Seeing the Alliance Master's face turn cold, Shangguaniye's heart skipped a beat. Alliance Master, after the battle, Miss Ling went up to help Black Wolf. Not only that, Miss Ling also helped Black Wolf to her residence. Finally, there was a reaction. Tong Tiandi was very nervous about his daughter. He asked, "What happened?" "Alliance Master, forgive me for being blunt. According to my guess, Miss Ling and Black Wolf already knew each other. Their relationship seems to be not ordinary. If it's fake, you know the consequences." His whole body trembled. Shangguaniye was very afraid of Tong Tiandi. Although he was the Deputy Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, Tong Tiandi could kill him at any time in the Martial Artists Alliance. This was the difference between the Alliance Master and the Deputy Alliance Master. "Alliance Master, I can guarantee with my life that the relationship between Black Wolf and Miss Ling is not ordinary. I'll look into this. You can leave now." Shangguaniye didn't dare to say anything else and slowly left. Once they were outside, Shangguaniye's lips slowly curled into a cold smile. He had purposely done what he did to He Lang, so that he could use the Alliance leader's help to deal with He Lang. Shangguaniye originally wanted to kill Black Wolf directly. However, Linger's sudden appearance in the battle between Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi made Shangguaniye unsure of the relationship between Black Wolf and Lu Tianxi. Shangguaniye didn't want to provoke Linger. After all, Linger was the Alliance Master's only daughter. If she caused trouble for him, it could be a serious matter. However, Black Wolf stole the Qilin blood from the Shangguan family and brazenly killed the Shangguan family's disciples. If he didn't take revenge, where would his dignity go? Where would his Shangguan family's dignity go? After thinking about it, Shangguaniye finally decided to kill Black Wolf with a borrowed knife. Although this knife was a little big, he knew very well that as long as the Alliance Master confirmed this, Black Wolf would definitely die even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. "Black Wolf, I'd like to see how many heads you have. How dare you provoke the Shangguan family? I hope you can escape this calamity. When the time comes, I'll make you wish you were dead." Shangguaniye's face was extremely gloomy. At first glance, one could tell that he wasn't a good person. Ever since he became the Deputy Alliance Master of the Martial Artists Alliance, he had been trying his best to develop the Shangguan family. No matter who it was, they couldn't provoke the Shangguan family. In the secret chamber, Tong Tiandi's face gradually became gloomy. He valued his daughter, Linger, very much. No matter who it was, they couldn't hurt Linger. "Men! Alliance Master! Investigate this Black Wolf for me. Remember, don't act rashly and don't disturb the young lady. If there's any movement, report to me immediately." "Yes." The entire secret chamber was silent. Only Tong Tiandi was there. He had reached the most critical moment of his cultivation. Tong Tiandi knew that if he could successfully break through, he would be one step closer to the peak of martial arts. P.S. The remaining 3 chapters will be updated at night. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.